Chapter 2035. Rummaging around in the Medicine King Hall, wishing that he could dig out all of the treasures and give them to his disciple. Elder Chong watched for a while and could not resist laughing in spite of himself. Following that, he shook his head and turned around to leave the Medicine King Hall. That's great. After so many years, he finally saw in Little Nine's eyes a true life force. He did not know who had become Little Nine's only disciple. He really hoped that he could quickly come up and bring Little Nine out of the quagmire of hell. Mayan, who had painstakingly obtained the Medicine King's inheritance and hadn't even seen the Medicine King's token, was chased out of the Tianguang ruins. Helpless, she could only recuperate from her injuries and sleep. When she woke up, it was already the next night. "Mother!" As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Xiao Bao looking at her nervously, his blue eyes filled with childish admiration and worry. Mu Yin sits up and extends her hand towards him. Xiao Bao immediately threw himself into her arms, hugging her tightly and rubbing against her. "What's wrong? You look like you haven't seen your mother for a long time. Did I sleep for a long time?" Xiao Bao didn't say anything. He shook his head in her arms, but he hugged her even tighter. Mayan laughs despite herself. She interpreted Xiao Bao's actions as her son acting coquettishly. "Little junior sister, you didn't sleep for long. It was only 2 days and 1 night. However, because of you, the entire Purple Cloud realm, and even the entire cultivation continent, have been turned upside down because of you." Mu Yin blinks. Luo Yu giggled and said, "Eldest senior brother told us to keep a low profile." In the end, Sixth senior sister created a Lord of 6 stars. Not only did she blow up the Dragon Ascension Academy 6 times, she even blew up the entire Purple Cloud realm. With this, it'll be hard for me not to be famous. The result of the Medicine King's inheritance test didn't shock the entire cultivation continent like it did when it was triggered. However, everyone in the Tianguang ruins knew about it. Little Tian almost stuck the words that Yi Liangshan was the successor of the King of Medicine in every corner of the Tianguang ruins. As such, the entire cultivation continent was in an uproar. The other 3 realms were still fine. Most of them were weak, so they had no idea how important the Medicine King's inheritance was and how impossible it was for them to obtain it. But the Ziyun realm was different. In the Ziyun realm, there were many experts who had comprehended the Tao. They had a good understanding of the Xiuxing continent and the sacred ancestor Medicine King. The more he understood just how terrifying the sacred ancestor Medicine King's sole inheritor was, just how covetous of an identity. Mu Yin glanced at the expressionless Yun Ruhan and said guiltily, "Ahem, it's Yi Liangshan who's famous. It has nothing to do with me. I'm still very low-key." Hearing this, the people of the Xiao Yao sect all wanted to roll their eyes at her. With her little junior sister's troublemaking personality, how could she say that she was low-key? They almost didn't know how to write the word low-profile anymore. Mu Yin felt very wronged. She was obviously very low-key at the Deer Cry banquet this time. He didn't steal the limelight, and he didn't hit anyone. He didn't hit anyone with a gunny sack, so that didn't count. Up until now, the Deer Feast is almost over, but not many people know her. Jun Mayan's name. Lung Yuma giggled and said, "Many big shots of the Purple Cloud world have entered the Tianguang ruins and are offering a reward to confirm Yi Liangshan's identity. Some people even went to the Azure Blue World's 3 academies to inquire about it. But fortunately, we've already informed Dean Ming and the others, and with Xiao's brother Qing helping to cover it up, it definitely won't be easily leaked." Ling Yuxing glared at Lung Yuma. "What brother Qing?" Brother Qing was naturally Ouyang Qing. That day, he brought Ling Yuxing's parents back to the Hellfire Valley and didn't come to the Deer Cry banquet. Chapter 2036. Ouyang Qing already had a lot of prestige in the Starry School, and with the help of Meng Baichuan and the other clan leaders, it was not difficult to hide Yi Liangshan's identity. Mu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. "Right. What is the Medicine King's inheritance like? What about the legendary Medicine King token? What does it look like? If you take it out, you can command all the alchemists in the world, and no one would dare to disobey you." The people of the Xiaoyao school asked all at once. They were also very curious about how magical the inheritance that everyone coveted was. Mu Yan's face fell. I don't know either. You don't know? I have never seen the Medicine King token. When I was unconscious, I felt something fly into my body, but I could not see it clearly. I was kicked out of the Tianguang ruins before I could get the inheritance. What? Kicked out of the Tianguang ruins? Why? Mu Yan was about to answer when the Tianlang Palace shook violently. Then, a strong and familiar aura came from afar. In the air, the sky demon zither hummed. Then came Qi Huang's excited voice. Mysterious Heaven Orb. It's the aura of the Mysterious Heaven Orb. The Mysterious Heaven Orb is about to be formed. Almost as soon as Qi Huang finished speaking, an old voice came from the sky. It was the spirit of the 6 Stars Tower. 3 days until the Mysterious Heaven Orb is formed. The chaotic tower will open now. Lord of 6 Stars, Yi Liangshan, please come. Lord of 6 Stars, Yi Liangshan, please come. Mu Yan's eyes brightened. The Mysterious Heaven Orb is formed. Did this mean that her sky demon zither could be repaired for the second time? Dinghua Marquis residence. In a cave in the backyard, a stone door opened slowly. A figure covered in blood was thrown out mercilessly from inside. Chu Tianyu opened his eyes, only to see a mess of flesh and blood. He breathed softly and felt a bone-piercing pain all over his body. These 2 days and 2 nights of hellish punishment, or rather torture, made him want to die every second. However, he knew that if he failed this time, what awaited him was an ending that was 100 times more miserable than death. You really disappoint me. Suddenly, a gloved hand slowly touched his bloodied face. Lord of 6 Stars? You can't have her. You won't be able to snatch the profound Heaven Pearl. The Medicine King's inheritance was so close, but it was taken away by Yi Liangshan. You're so useless. Why should I keep you alive? What's the point of keeping your mother? Chu Tianyu suddenly raised his head, tears of blood rolling down his cheeks. Father, I beg you, don't hurt my mother. I'm willing to find the most precious treasure in the world for you. I'm willing to do anything for you. Just let my mother go. Was Chu Tianyu afraid of death? Of course he was afraid. They were especially afraid that they would end up like their half-brothers and half-sisters. However, compared to death, he was more afraid that his mother, the wife of the Dinghua Marquis, would be tortured to death by this terrible man. Chu Xinyan stood up and looked down at his son, who was crying and begging like a dog. Letting out a cold laugh, he suddenly lifted his foot and ruthlessly stepped on his head. His actions were rough and cruel, but his words were incomparably gentle. This is the last chance I'm giving you. This is your last chance to obtain the Mysterious Heaven Orb. If you can't even grasp this opportunity, then don't blame your father for letting you accompany your brothers and sisters. Of course, your mother will also accompany you. Chapter 2037. Chu Tianyu said with a trembling voice, Mysterious Heaven Pearl? It's Yi Liangshan's. I can't get it at all. Chu Xinyan chuckled again. Yes, it's Yi Liangshan's. And you are Yi Liangshan. Purple Cloud Realm, Dragon Soaring Academy's highest meeting hall, Treasure Light Hall. At this moment, almost all the leaders of Dragon Soaring Academy were gathered here. Dean Zhou Daoi, Vice Dean Chu Zongsheng, Vice Dean Yu Tsuanjian, the Sun, Moon, and Star Supremacies, as well as the 9 elders of the Elder Council. Only the number 1 expert of the Academy, Vice Dean Kong Yuanjiu, was absent due to seclusion. Everyone was frowning, and there seemed to be worry in their eyes. Zhou Daoi glanced at everyone present, then said in a low voice, Everyone should know why all of you are gathered here today. Mysterious Heaven Pearl. Someone said softly. That's right. Zhou Daoi immediately said. I believe everyone still remembers that there is an iron law left behind in Dragon Soaring Academy. The Emperor's decree cannot be disobeyed. The Emperor's most important instruction is to take care of the Mysterious Heaven Pearl and Chaotic Tower and give them to the Lord of 6 Stars. Many people present frowned, and their eyes revealed a trace of greed and unwillingness. But when they thought of the legend of the Emperor and the great formation in divine Elephant City. They suppressed the greed in their hearts. The mysterious Heaven Pearl and chaotic tower were precious, but they needed to be alive to enjoy them. But the problem now is that the Lord of 6 Stars, Yi Liangchen, has yet to appear. Vice Dean Zhu frowned. We once sent people to Tianguang ruins to contact her, but we didn't expect to run into the Herbalist King's inheritance. Initially, I wanted to wait until the King of Herb's inheritance ended before going to look for her. However, I didn't expect that Yap Liangchen would disappear completely after the inheritance ended. Disappeared? Vice Dean Zhu nodded. Yes, she disappeared into thin air. You might not believe it, but there are many people in Yi Liangchen's army who can communicate with her. But now, they can't even find Yi Liangchen's name in the communication list. Yi Liangchen's army is going crazy. If it wasn't for congratulations to Tianguang Ruins special class user, Yi Liangchen, for becoming the sole successor of the sacred ancestor Medicine King. With the name of Tianguang Chief of the Golden Age still hanging in Tianguang Ruins, everyone thought that Yap Liangchen didn't exist anymore. Zhou Daoyi also frowned. What's going on? Could it be that Yap Liangchen was severely injured in the inheritance space? Many people in Tianguang Ruins had seen her self-destructing her primordial spirit when she was breaking through the nourishing objects barrier, leaving her covered in wounds. He might have already fallen into a coma. But the problem is that the profound heaven orb will be condensed in 3 days, and we don't even know who Yi Liangchen is. At that time, who should I give the profound heaven orb to? Vice Principal Yu Tsuinjian, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, Recently, there has been a rumor in the divine Elephant City. What rumor? After a pause, Yu Tsuinjian said, Now, many people suspect that Yi Liangchen is Chu Tianyu from our Dragon Soaring Academy. What? That's impossible, right? Qi Xing, one of the Sun, Moon, and Star Venerables, immediately shook his head and said, That's impossible. One must know that Yi Liangchen first appeared in the Azure Blue Realm. But Chu Tianyu is a native cultivator of the Purple Cloud Realm, the son of the Dingwa Marquis. He probably hasn't even been to a small place like the Azure Blue Realm. How could Chu Tianyu be Yi Liangchen? Chapter 2038. Many people nodded at Qi Xing's words, but some of them were deep in thought. Elder Song, one of the 9 elders, chuckled. I think he did. Did you forget that last year, Chu Tianyu applied to go out for training? He was gone for several months. That time coincided with Yi Liangchen's appearance in the Azure Blue Realm. You mean Chu Tianyu went to the Azure Blue Realm during his training? Can anyone prove it? Elder Song stroked his beard and said casually, When I heard the rumor, I immediately went to Chu Tianyu's bodyguard to verify it. He told me that Chu Tianyu did go to the Azure Blue Realm during those months. He was looking for a rare spiritual plant for the Dingwa Marquis, which happened to grow in the Danyang Mountain Range. At this moment, everyone in the room could no longer remain calm. Zhou Daoyi asked, Where is Chu Tianyu? Go and get him. Yu Tsuinjian shook his head and said, I haven't seen him since 3 days ago. I asked his manservant, but the manservant hemmed and hawed and refused to tell me. He only said that the prince suffered some minor injuries and had to undergo closed-door training. That's it. That's it. Several elders of the Sky Court stood up and slapped the table. I knew it. How could such a monster come from the tiny Azure Blue Realm? How could he defeat all the elites of the Dragon Soaring Academy? Haha. It turns out that the Lord of 6 Stars is the brightest genius of the Dragon Soaring Academy. Everyone in the room looked gratified. Their nervousness and unwillingness had disappeared without a trace. In fact, the teachers and students of the Dragon Soaring Academy had been very sullen these days. The 6 lists of the Dragon Soaring Academy, which represented the highest combat strength of the students, had been slaughtered. Moreover, it was a nameless cultivator from the mortal world. How could the students of the Dragon Soaring Academy, who had always been high and mighty, show their faces? Now that they knew that the person who slaughtered the 6 lists became the Lord of 6 Stars and obtained the Dragon Soaring Academy's supreme treasure was their genius, they were naturally overjoyed. This meant that the Dragon Soaring Academy was still powerful, the leader of all academies, and could suppress a small place like the Azure Blue Realm. But there were also a few people who looked surprised. For example, the vice deans, the sun, moon, and star venerables. Chi Ri murmured softly, "But why do I remember that when Chu Tianyu went to train, he went west? That place isn't." He did not finish his sentence. Yu Tsinjin interrupted him abruptly. "Moreover, I believe that Chu Tianyu is Yi Liangchun, and there is one more important piece of evidence. When the Lord of 6 Stars arrived, everyone hurried to the 6-star pagoda, only to see Chu Tianyu emerge. But he didn't admit it at that time. That's because Tianyu keeps a low profile." Elder Song looked gratified. "After this child entered the Dragon Ascension Academy, I taught him personally. He is the most talented person I have ever seen. Fighting, alchemy, talismans, he is proficient in all of them. However, despite having such talent, he had always been low-key and humble, never showing off. I think it's because of his personality that he changed his name to Yap Liangchun." As he spoke, he looked at the 3 venerables with a faint smile. "Moreover, compared to letting a kid who has nothing to do with the Dragon Soaring Academy become the Lord of 6 Stars and humiliate us, shouldn't we be happier that Chu Tianyu won this honor? Venerables, what do you think?" Everyone nodded simultaneously. Chapter 2039. Most people had already concluded that Chu Tianyu was Yi Liangchun. The 3 venerables were suspicious, but they didn't say anything. Yu Tsunjin smiled. "I heard that Chu Tianyu has woken up today, and his injuries are not a problem. We just need to wait for him to claim the Xintian orb 3 days later. In an inn in the Divine Elephant City. Have you heard? Yi Liangchun's real identity is actually Chu Tianyu from the Dragon Soaring Academy." "Huh, isn't Yi Liangchun a woman? Stupid, that's just a cover. You forgot that Tianguang ruins can change one's appearance and gender. Who has seen Yi Liangchun's real face? Who can guarantee that Yi Liangchun is a man or a woman? In my opinion, female cultivators are naturally inferior to male cultivators. There are only a few men like Yi Liangchun. How can he be a woman?" "Ha, I was wondering how the Azure Blue Realm could have such a genius. So Yi Liangchun is the senior brother Chu that I admire. No wonder. Ah, senior brother Chu, how can you be so powerful? I love you so much." The cultivators from the Azure Blue Realm in the inn couldn't take it anymore. "Bullshit. Yi Liangchun is from the Azure Blue Realm. The entire Azure Blue Realm knows that. You are so despicable. Saying that Yi Liangchun is Chu Tianyu is just bullshit." The Starry School students were so angry that their faces turned red. "Yi Liangchun is from the Starry School. I have seen Yi Liangchun outside the Linglong Tower. Chu Tianyu's figure is completely different from Yi Liangchun. Don't boast." "Ha, you said that Yi Liangchun is from the Azure Blue Realm. If you can, ask her to come out and talk. If she can't, then Yi Liangchun is from the Purple Cloud Realm." Outside the inn, a group of people were blushing and arguing. Lung Yuma and Luo Yu, who were about to enter the inn to eat, looked at each other and smiled dangerously. "Chu Tianyu is Yi Liangchun? Ha, are you kidding me? There was actually someone who dared to pretend to be their junior sister. They must be tired of living." 2 days passed quickly. There were only 16 hours left until the profound heaven orb was completely condensed. At this time, all the instructors of the Dragon Soaring Academy had gathered under the Chaotic Tower. When the Lord of 6 Stars was born, the Chaotic Tower was formed from the light gathered from the 6 directions of the Dragon Ascension Academy. This was a divine equipment, and it was even more precious than the 6 Stars Pagoda. Originally, the Chaotic Pagoda was floating high up in the sky, but as the profound heaven orb slowly condensed, the Chaotic Pagoda descended lower and lower. At this time, it was only 1 meter away from the ground. The originally tightly shut doors of the Chaotic Tower had long since been opened 2 days ago. It was filled with dense spiritual energy, as well as an oppressive aura. Such a treasured land was something that all cultivators couldn't help but covet. However, at this moment, the people present could no longer be bothered to exclaim at the preciousness of the Chaotic Tower. Zhou Daoi looked at the door nervously. Who was this Yi Liangshan who had suddenly appeared a month ago and swept the soaring dragon list to become the successor of the Herb King? Was his veil finally going to be lifted today? Just as Zhang Xian was deep in thought, an aura suddenly approached the chaotic tower. The vice dean shouted in a low voice, "The chaotic tower is a holy land. No one is allowed to barge in." "Who is it?" The outside was silent for a moment. Then a low and hoarse male voice sounded. "Yi Liangshan, add to bookmark for easier reading." Chapter 2040. Swish! Everyone in the tower stood up and stared at the door. Yu Tsuanjian and Elder Song were the only ones who were not worried at all. Soon, they saw a tall young man walk into the chaotic tower. The young man was handsome and graceful, but his face was as pale as a piece of paper. Obviously, he had not recovered from his serious injuries. Seeing him, the mentors of the Soaring Dragon Academy beamed with joy. "Chu Tianyu, it's really you? You really are Yi Liangshan?" Chu Tianyu bowed slightly. "I'm sorry that I've caused trouble for you, mentors. I've defeated the 6 roles of the Soaring Dragon Academy and obtained the inheritance of the King Pharmacist." "Ha!" Yu Tsunjin laughed. "Your achievements are for the glory of the Soaring Dragon Academy. How can you say that you're causing trouble? Right. You're the Lord of 6 stars and the heir of the King Pharmacist. The entire Soaring Dragon Academy is proud of you." Chu Tianyu lowered his eyes to hide the shame in them. "Yi Liangshan, I'm sorry. I had no choice. The Dark Heaven Orb is the last hope of my mother and me. Even if I have to impersonate you, even if I have to become a shameless villain, I must get it." Elder Song stood up and patted Chu Tianyu's shoulder. "Good job. You didn't let the Purple Cloud realm be suppressed by those good-for-nothings from the Azure Blue realm. Let's go. I'll take you to the top floor to get the Dark Heaven Orb." Chi-Ri frowned. "The Dark Heaven Orb hasn't been condensed yet." That's nothing." Elder Song didn't care. "Let Tianyu wait there. We'll take it when it's condensed." The vice deans hesitated and asked, "Don't we need to verify Yi Liangshan's identity?" "Tianyu, where's your herb token?" As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned for a moment. Yu Tsunjian forced a smile. "What's there to verify? So many days have passed, and Chu Tianyu is the only one who has come to collect the Dark Heaven Orb." This time, Zhou Daoi looked at Chu Tianyu. "Do you have the herb token?" A trace of panic flashed across Chu Tianyu's eyes. He cleared his throat and said, "Dean, the herb token is actually illusory. I can't take it out." "Illusory?" Yes, that's also possible." Elder Song said loudly. "The king of medicine is from the Xioshan continent. The people there all use the methods of the gods. They say it's the king of medicine token, but it might just be a divine soul imprint." Plus, is it that easy to impersonate Yap Liangshan? If it wasn't for God's blessing, who else could be as good as Yap Liangshan? Even if others wanted to impersonate her, they would have to consider whether they have the ability to be blessed by the heavens. Zhou Daoi frowned and finally waved his hand. However, before he could say anything, a voice came out of his mouth. He felt a few auras shooting toward him. The vice deans were about to sternly warn the unrelated people to stay away, who knew that the newcomer's speed was shockingly fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had already rushed through the door. Everyone was startled. When they saw who it was, they were shocked. Vice Principal Zhu immediately frowned and said, "You are from the Carefree Squad? How dare you? Didn't you hear the Flying Dragon City's announcement that unrelated people were not allowed to approach the Chaotic Tower? Why are you still here?" Ling Yuxing smiled. "I'm not a nobody." Vice Principal Zhu revealed a suspicious look. However, before he could ask anything, another figure suddenly appeared. "Go out? Aren't you guys looking for Yap Liangshan?" Lung Yuma swaggered in, with a long blade on her back. "Plus, this chaotic tower seems to belong to Yap Liangshan, right? Why do you want us to go out?" Chapter 2041. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. "You're Yap Liangshan? Me? Of course, I'm not Yap Liangshan." Lung Yuma grinned, revealing her white teeth. "I'm opening the way for God Yap Liangshan." "What the hell? Opening the way? The vice deans were speechless. Chu Tianyo's pupils constricted as he stared at the door. Right at this time, a few more figures shot towards the outside of the chaotic pagoda, swaggering in. Yun Ruhan, Qin Jiao, Chu Moli, and Luo Yu were all present except for Mayan. The moment Luo Yu entered, she yelled, "I heard that someone is pretending to be Yap Liangqin. I was wondering who it was that was so shameless." Turning to Chu Tianyu, she sneered, "So, it's the leader of the Qilin team? Wasn't it enough that you pretended to be Yap Liangqin the last time? I heard that you're representing the Dragon Ascension Academy. So, the Academy's reputation is thicker than the city walls." Chu Tianyo's face darkened. "You said that I'm not Yap Liangqin. Are you?" I'm not Yap Liangqin." Luo Yu laughed. "I'm here to open the way for God Yap Liangqin." Yun Ruhan looked at everyone and said slowly, "We're not Yap Liangqin. We're here to open the way for him." "What the hell? Open the way again?" The teachers and deans of the Dragon Ascension Academy were stunned. Yu Tsuinjin said coldly, "You're here to open the way for Yap Liangqin? Do you know who Yap Liangqin is? And you're just spouting nonsense here?" "TCH, we don't know. Do you?" Luo Yu sneered. "In the Divine Elephant City, everyone knows that every time Yap Liangqin kills someone, it's related to us. If we don't know him, how could it be so coincidental?" These words caused many people to ponder deeply, especially the three venerables of Sun Moon, who were in charge of the Deer Cry banquet. They agreed with Luo Yu. The vice deans asked, "Then, who do you think Yap Liangqin is?" Before he could finish his words, Elder Song interrupted him sternly. "Vice Principal Zhu, stop listening to their nonsense and trying to claim connections with us. A few small fries from the Azure Blue world came here to swindle our Dragon Soar Academy's most precious treasure with a few irresponsible words. Do you really believe them?" Qi Xing said, "I'm just asking them who Yap Liangqin is and verifying it." "Is it wrong?" His words were once again interrupted by Yu Tsuinjian, who looked at Zhou Daoi and said, "Dean, please think it over. Who didn't know that the mysterious Heaven Orb and Chaotic Tower were supreme treasures? Naturally, there were many who coveted them. Do you want to give it to those outsiders who have ulterior motives and fabricate lies, or to give it to our Dragon Soaring Academy's own people? You must think carefully." "What? Open the way for Yi Liangqin? You really believe that? They are clearly in cahoots with each other, deliberately mystifying things, wanting to swindle the profound Heaven Bead." Zhou Daoi frowned slightly, his expression grave. Right at this moment, a clear and tender voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. "Devour, I'm also here to clear the path for Yi Liangqin. Could it be that I'm also colluding with them to swindle the profound Heaven Orb?" Everyone was shocked and looked towards the door in unison. When they saw who it was, their expressions changed instantly, and they bowed in greeting. "Greetings, Your 11th Highness. Greetings, Lord Lan Feng." A youth of about 12 or 13 years old, dressed in brocade clothes, slowly walked into the chaotic palace. Chapter 2042. He was the Lan imperial family's 11th prince, Lan Huahong, and the only legitimate son of the Lan imperial family's emperor and empress. Following behind Lan Huahong was naturally Lan Feng. When he first went to the Azure Blue world, Lan Feng had already reached the peak of the nascent soul realm. On top of that, he had made a breakthrough to the leaving aperture realm. Even though he had retracted his aura, it was still powerful. Zhou Daoi said respectfully, "May I know what the 11th prince's orders are?" Lan Huahong glanced at them. "Didn't you hear me? I have already said that I am here to open the path for Yi Liangqin." "What? Another one opening the path?" The corner of Zhou Daoi's mouth twitched. "11th Prince, do you know who Yap Liangqin is?" Lan Huahong. "Of course I know. That's my boss's mother. I also know." He suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Chu Tianyu. "He is definitely not Yi Liangqin. He actually dared to impersonate the matriarch's identity. He must be tired of living. This time, boss asked him to prove Guru Ye's identity, so he must perform well. Strive to sit firmly on the throne of boss's #1 lackey." Thinking of this, Lan Huahong clenched her fists, raised her chin, and became even more arrogant. Chu Tianyu closed his eyes and slowly raised his head. He asked in a deep voice, "If I'm not Yi Liangqin, then who is?" Zhou Daoyi and the vice deans also said anxiously, "Yes, who exactly is Yi Liangqin?" "I am." A pleasant, heavenly voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. Then, a snow-white figure slowly walked in from the door. Skin of ice and bones of jade, hair of misty clouds. There was a beautiful woman, elegant and graceful. There was a beauty that he would never forget. For a time, the entire chaotic tower fell into a deathly silence. Even Chu Tianyu was staring at the newcomer in a daze, as if he had lost his soul. Jun Mayan of the Carefree team, the #1 assistant of this dear cry banquet. It wasn't that no one had seen this girl before. However, it wasn't like looking at flowers in a mirror. There was a layer between them, so they couldn't see it clearly. In order to comply with Yun Ruhan's wishes, Mu Yin had deliberately kept a low profile and restrained her aura. It made people ignore her appearance. At this moment, when she unleashed her aura, she did not hold back at all to devour. Only then did he realize how beautiful this girl was. Even the princess of the Lan dynasty, who was known as the #1 beauty in the eastern continent of the Purple Cloud realm, couldn't be compared to her. Mayan slowly walks into the main hall and stands in front of everyone. She lightly raises the corners of her mouth, revealing a languid smile that could turn all living things upside down. "I'm really sorry to disappoint everyone. I am Yap Liangchen." Deputy Headmaster Zhu said suspiciously, You are the assistant musician of the Xiao Yao team, Jun Mayan?" "Exactly." The chaotic tower was silent for a moment. Then, Elder Song laughed out loud. "You said you were Yap Liangchen? Are you kidding me? How dare an assistant musician pretend to be Yap Liangchen? Huh? Do you know who Yap Liangchen is? Do you think that the Dragon Ascension 6 lists, which represent the highest combat power in the Dragon Ascension Academy, can be slaughtered by just anyone? Even the 3 venerables of Sunstar, who didn't believe that Chu Tianyu was Yap Liangchen, shook their heads. Jun Mayan, stop messing around. If you know the real Yap Liangchen, ask her to come out as soon as possible. The mysterious heaven orb is destined to belong to her. If the other members of the Xiao Yao team say that they are Yap Liangchen, I would still believe them. Chapter 2043. But you, Mu Yin, have a sliver of hope to rank first on the Ganhua rankings. You can't possibly become the Lord of 6 Stars? I say you should be more reliable in your lies. Time is of the essence. Let the real Yi Liangchen come out. This time, Mu Yin was a little depressed. Why can't I be the Lord of 6 Stars? Did she look that weak? The Xiaoyao sect members couldn't help but laugh. In fact, it was normal for the Soaring Dragon sect members to not believe it. The Soaring Dragon 6 rankings might have support rankings like the Ganhua rankings, but most of them were for combat cultivators. Among the 7 from the Xiaorao sect, Mu Yin looked young and weak. She was also a support musician who had never displayed her combat ability. Who would believe that such a delicate and beautiful assistant zither player was Yi Liangchen, the Lord of 6 Stars who was invincible among all the gold core cultivators in the Purple Cloud realm? Chu Tianyu took a deep breath and walked towards Mu Yin. He looked at her deeply. "You said you were Yi Liangchen? Do you have the Medicine King token?" Mu Yin shrugged. "No." "Do you have anything that can prove your identity?" Mu Yin shook her head. No. She really didn't have anything now. The clear sky token and the glass bead she obtained from the Medicine King's inheritance were all stored in the Tingguang Ruins Jade Key. Even the Medicine King token that she hadn't seen yet was probably in the Jade Key. Now that she couldn't enter the Tingguang Ruins and couldn't open the Jade Key, she naturally couldn't take anything out. Chu Tianyu chuckled with a sharp gaze. "You don't have anything. What makes you think you are Yi Liangchen?" "I don't have anything. Do you?" Mu Yin raised the corner of her eyes and smiled lazily and evilly. "What's more, even if I don't have any proof, I think I finally know something." "What is it?" "When we first met in the Tingguang Ruins, I felt that you looked familiar, but I couldn't remember. Now I finally know. Kiki, I wonder if Senior Chu knows Fuchin?" Chu Tianyu's eyes shrank and his expression changed. He subconsciously wanted to step back. There were very few people who knew that he was Fuchin. How did this woman know? Could she really be Ilyanshin? Chu Tianyu opened his mouth and wanted to say something. Yu Tsuanjian suddenly shouted, "What a farce! How could they let an assistant musician pretend to be the Lord of 6 Stars? Do they have no respect for me, Soaring Dragon? Headmaster, don't waste any more words with them. Chase them all out. Don't let them disturb the mysterious Heaven Orb's process of recognizing them as its master. If these people dare to cause trouble again, expel them from Divine Elephant City and the Purple Cloud Realm." Lan Feng's brows furrowed, and he said coldly, "Vice Dean Yu, don't go overboard with your words. Miss June was the savior of the 11th Highness. Her strength is not something you can comment on." "Aha, strength? Playing the zither and showing off?" Elder Song laughed heartily. "We have long acknowledged this point. Or do you really think that she's more powerful than Tianyu? Lord Lan, 11th Highness, could it be that you've been smitten by this woman just because she's pretty?" When these words came out, Lan Feng and Lan Huahong flew into a rage. Even Zhou Daoi and the others frowned. But Elder Song and Yu Tsinjian didn't seem to care about the two of them at all. Lan Huahong took a step forward with cold eyes. He suddenly released the prowess of the imperial family. "How dare you?" Chapter 2044. Lan Feng glared fiercely at Elder Song. "Song Wei, do you think you can disrespect the royal family just because you're Dinghua's man? Who gave you the courage to speak to the 11th prince like this?" A ferocious glint flashed in Elder Song's eyes. He was about to lose his temper when Yu Tsunjian pulled him back. In the end, he let out a cold snort and said indifferently, "I, Old Song, am a boorish man. My words are unpleasant to hear. I hope that your highness will forgive me. But you want to say that this delicate little girl is the Lord of 6 Stars? Yi Liangqin? What a joke." Lan Huahong was seething with anger. He wished he could get someone to execute this arrogant person on the spot. However, before he could speak, Mu Yin stretched out her hand and stopped him. "Are you saying that as long as you are strong enough, you can be Yap Liangqin? Then things are very simple. I will fight with senior brother Chu. Whoever wins will be Yi Liangqin. Isn't that it?" She looked at Chu Tianyu with a smile that was not a smile. "Or is it that senior apprentice brother Chu doesn't dare to fight?" Chu Tianyu absent-mindedly raises his head. Looking at Mayan's devastatingly beautiful face, his heart suddenly beats. Not only was he stunned, but he also felt a sense of familiarity and fear that came from his bones. Even if it was a different face, the look in his eyes and the disdainful attitude. He had seen it time and time again in the Tingguang ruins. Yap Liangchun. In this world, only Yap Liangchun had such a look in his eyes. Chu Tianyu suddenly lowered his eyes and coughed lightly. Yu Tsunjian immediately sneered and said, "Everyone in the Tingguang ruins saw that Yap Liangchun's primordial spirit self-detonated when he passed the last test of the King of Medicine's heritage and was severely wounded. You look completely unscathed right now, yet you want to challenge Chu Tianyu, who is yet to recover from his injuries. I really don't know what your intentions are." This time, everyone looks at Mu Yin with even more suspicion. Mu Yin is simply speechless. His primordial spirit self-detonated, and he was heavily injured? Yes, she did detonate her primordial spirit and her sea of consciousness. However, her primordial spirit was as condensed as a mountain, and her sea of consciousness was as vast as the sea. So what if she self-destructed a little? It didn't affect him at all? Okay, he would be fine after resting for 2 or 3 days. But now, it became the proof that he was not Yap Liangchun. Mu Yin almost rolls her eyes. The next moment, she raises her hand, and the Tianimo Qin appears in her hand. The melodious sound of the zither resounded within the chaotic tower. Countless specks of light landed on Chu Tianyu's body and drilled into his body. Chu Tianyu only felt that his body, which had been tortured to the point of being covered in cuts and bruises, seemed to have a gurgling stream flowing through his body. His damaged divine soul and sea of consciousness healed bit by bit. Even the pain in his mind seemed to have been soothed. When the song ended, Chu Tianyu's face was no longer pale. His weak aura also became incomparably condensed, even stronger and more condensed than before. Peak of Golden Core, only one step away from the nascent soul stage. The mentors of Soaring Dragon were all stunned. Jun Mayan is actually healing Chu Tianyu. Moreover, even if he knew that Jun Mayan was the strongest assistant musician at the Dear Cry banquet, but in the time it took for a song to heal the wound on his divine soul, isn't this supportability too overpowered? Mayan raises her hand and puts the Tian Mo Chin into her space. She looks at Chu Tianyu with a smile that isn't a smile. Brother Chu, now that there's no excuse, can we fight? Chu Tianyu stared at her in a daze, as if he had lost his soul. Lung Yuma spits, you've been babbling for half a day, but you don't even dare to fight. You still dare to call yourself Yap Liangshan. Before coming here, this old lady had heard that every member of the Soaring Dragon's Qilin team was one of the best Heaven's pride in the Xian boundary. Now that I see it, if you're not a fucking talker, you're a coward. Chapter 2045. Since Miss Lung looks down on the Qilin team so much, I think there's no need to let Miss June and the team leader fight one-on-one. How about our Qilin team and Carefree team compete? Everyone turned around and saw the 9 members of the Kirin team swaggering in from outside the door. Among these 9 people, some were brimming with fighting spirit, some were brimming with anger, and some were filled with hatred. Xue Huailu, Su Yi, and Chu Yuanlei immediately rushed to Chu Tianyu and said excitedly, Captain, are you really Yu Liangshan? Why didn't you tell us that you were going to slay the Dragon Ascension 6 roles? Chu Tianyu struggled in his heart for a moment before finally concealing all the guilt and uneasiness. Nothing was more important than his life and his mother's safety. He was Yap Liangshan. Yes, he, Chu Tianyu, was the Lord of 6 Stars, the heir to the Medicine King, Yi Lianken. Chu Tianyu put his hands behind his back and said indifferently, Apologies, I need the profound Heaven Pearl. Although Xue Huailu was unwilling, when he thought of Chu Tianyu's identity and his hatred for the Carefree Squad, he immediately smiled and said, Senior Brother Chu must be joking. You are the captain of our Kirin Squad, and your strength is above ours. Becoming the Lord of 6 Stars is only natural. Su Yi's face was filled with flattery. If someone else used me, Su Yi, to climb to the top of the Hiyu list, I would definitely not accept it. But only you, Captain, are worthy of the title. Even Chu Yuanlei and Duan Wenbin, who had always been unruly, showed reverence for Chu Tianyu. Duan Wenbin already knew that his captain was stronger than him. The only reason he was at the top of the 1,000 average list was because Chu Tianyu had no interest in slaughtering people. The members of the Kirin team congratulated Chu Tianyu one after another. They also felt honored. The fact that the Lord of 6 Stars was the captain of the Qilin Squad was proof of how powerful they were. No one in the entire Purple Cloud realm, or even the entire cultivation world, could shake them. Murong Xue was the only one who looked confused. Boss Chu, are you really Yi Liangshan? Chu Tianyu smiled. What? You don't believe me? Or do you think I'm not qualified? No. Murong Xue subconsciously shook her head. Everyone in the Kirin team acknowledged Chu Tianyu's strength. Since Chu Tianyu could become the unquestionable captain of the Kirin team, he naturally had his own beauty. Even though Murong Xue hated vile people like Xue Huailu and Su Yi, she still respected Chu Tianyu. However, she still feels that there's something wrong with this matter. Her gaze subconsciously turns towards Mayan. If she didn't hear wrongly, it was just outside the door. The woman said that she was Yap Liangshan. However, how could such a delicate young girl be Yi Liangshan, who had slaughtered all 6 lists and trampled all the geniuses of Dragon Ascension under her feet? Not even Murong Xue suspected Chu Tianyu, much less the other members of the Kirin Squad. This made the instructors of Dragon Soaring Academy even more convinced that Chu Tianyu was Yi Liangshan. Chu Yuanlei walked up to Yin Ruhan and said in a booming voice, Carefree team, I've watched your match against the Fusang team, and I respect your strength. But I, old Chu, will tell you the truth. With your performances, no matter which one of you wants to beat our boss Chu, you are still far from being able to do so. As he spoke, he turned to Mayan, and the trace of admiration in his eyes turned into disdain. Not to mention, she's such a delicate little girl. It's not that I look down on women, and I'm not like those bastards from the Fusang team either. But in the cultivation world, the one with the biggest fist is the last word. Any other flowery words are nothing but nonsense. Chapter 2046. I advise you to admit your mistakes and leave this place as soon as possible. We, the Qilin team, will not bother with you. Otherwise, Yun Ruhan had yet to speak. Lung Yuma already sneered. Otherwise what? You want to fight with us? Let's fight. You think we're afraid of your bullshit donkey riding team, horse riding team? That's right. What's the point of talking so much? Luo Yu also shouted loudly. If you want to fight, then fight. Whoever wins is Yi Liangshen. Fourth brother, Xiao Qi. Yun Ruhan shouted with a headache. Don't cause trouble. This is a decision that only little junior sister can make. No, I think it's pretty good. Mu Yin said slowly. Don't many people think that even if we win the competition, we won't be able to dominate the Deer Cry Banquet? They also said that the Qilin team will always be the uncrowned king of the Deer Cry Banquet. In my opinion, it's time for someone else to sit on the throne of the uncrowned king. As soon as these words came out, not to mention Xue Huailu and the others who already hated the Carefree team, even Duan Wenbin, Murong Xue, and the others had burning eyes as they stared at Mu Yin aggressively. The members of the Carefree team did not show any weakness and stared back at him. Chu Tianyu slowly stood up straight. At this moment, he no longer had the dispiritedness, guilt, and gloom. What he had was the confidence, pride, and awe-inspiring domineeringness of a strong person. If you want to defeat our Qilin team, your Carefree team is still far from enough. Since you want to humiliate yourselves, then, in an hour in Flying Dragon City, our two teams will fight it out. Chu Tianyu's gaze swept across the people of the Carefree sect and finally landed on Mu Yin. There are only 7 people in the Carefree team. Our Qilin team will not take advantage of you. You can choose 3 people from the participating teams. No need. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth slowly raised. A lazy, disdainful, and captivating smile slowly bloomed on her face, dazzling Chu Tianyu's mind and heart. To deal with your Qilin team, I, the Carefree 7, is enough. Purple Cloud Realm, Divine Elephant City. Hurry, let's go to Flying Dragon City. It will be too late. What's going on? Haven't you heard? The Carefree team is going to compete with the Qilin team. The performance of the Qilin team with the Yuanying stage teacher has been cancelled and changed to a life and death battle with the Carefree team to compete for the title of the strongest person in the Deer Cry Banquet. What? We can't miss such a grand occasion. Quick, let's go now. The match between the Carefree team and the Qilin team was scheduled for an hour later. But in less than 15 minutes, the entire Divine Elephant City was empty. On the contrary, the stands of the Flying Dragon City were densely packed with people. Even if they couldn't enter the Flying Dragon City, they were still guarding the perimeter, unwilling to leave. Everyone knew that Qilin versus Xiaoyao. This would be the most exciting match of the Deer Cry Banquet. If he missed this opportunity, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Between the Kirin team and the Carefree team, who do you think will obtain the final victory? Isn't that obvious? Of course it was the Qilin team. Senior brother Chu, senior brother Duan, and eldest Miss Murong. Which one of them was not strong enough to fight against 10 people alone? The Qilin team, compared to the other teams participating in the Deer Cry Banquet, is simply not on the same level. Do you really think that if the Carefree team defeated the other teams, they would really be able to win against the Qilin team? Stop joking. That's right, the Carefree team fought so hard against the Fusang team, and later lost to the Changing Moon team. But these two teams together are completely not a match for the Qilin team. Chapter 2047. I admit that the Carefree team is very strong, but to say that they can win against the Qilin team, this is absolutely impossible. What's more, don't forget, there are only 7 people in the Carefree team, and each of their cultivation bases is below the 3rd stage of Jindan, while the Carefree team has 4 peak Jindan, and the rest are all in the 8th and 9th stage of Jindan. In short, 90% of the people in the stands are not optimistic about the Carefree team. There's no other reason. The gap in strength is too big. But the performance of the Carefree team before is too good. Therefore, the supporters in the stands are not one-sided. There are also many people who are cheering for the Carefree team. It's different from the previous 8 high platforms, 8 flowers in the mirror. At this time, there is only a huge high platform left in the center of Flying Dragon City. On the high platform, there is still a small secret realm constructed by the flowers in the mirror. From the stands, one can clearly see the landscape of the jungle, lawn, and stream inside, and the seats on the high platform, in addition to the contestants of each team. There is also a large group of people, the dean and mentors of the Dragon Soaring Academy. Zhou Xiaoyu, the leader of the Heavens Pivot team, and Lu Jinhang, the leader of the Phoenix Sky King team, look around and swallow their saliva. Lu Jinhang murmurs, "Are the people of the Carefree team crazy? How could they go against the people of the Qilin team?" Zhou Xiaoyu is silent for a long time, then dryly says, You can't say that, can you? The strength of the Carefree team is also very strong." Lu Jinhang rolls his eyes. "Of course I know that the Carefree team is very strong, but do you understand that the Qilin team is a team that can tie with a nascent soulmender? Otherwise, the Qilin team would not have been specially brought out for this time's chief competition. It's not easy for the Carefree team to beat the Fusang team. Do you really think they can win against the Qilin team? What's more, even with Jun Mayan, there are only 7 people in the Carefree team. Can they really win against the Qilin team, who are all in the late Jinan stage?" Lu Jinhang's words make the 2 participating teams of the Azure Blue Realm show dejected expressions. Although they also hope that the Carefree team will win, although they also don't want to boost other people's morale and diminish their own prestige. In the stands, even little Fatty Zheng, Nailan Dongyun, and the other die-hard supporters of Mayan all reveal worried expressions. On the contrary, the supporters of the Kirin team and Chu Tianyu were in high spirits. The news that Chu Tianyu was Yi Liangshen, the great god Yi, spread like wildfire. In such a noisy and tense atmosphere, Qilin team and Carefree team, a total of 17 people, appeared in the center of Flying Dragon City. Murong Shui smiled and stared straight at Luo Yu. She smiled gently and said, "Little brother, if I win the competition later, you'll accompany me for a day. If you win, how about I accompany you for a day?" Shui Huailu's arrogant face immediately revealed a venomous expression as he glared at Luo Yu with murderous intent. Luo Yu looked around and said blankly, "Sister? Where's my sister? Why don't I see her? I only saw an old Annie pretending to be young." "Puchi." The people of the Xiaorao sect laughed without giving them any face. Murong Shui was also angered to the point of leaning back, but she quickly put on a charming smile. Little brother Luo Yu's mouth really makes this sister love and hate it at the same time. Why don't you let this sister block those sexy lips of yours later? This time, it was Luo Yu's turn to blush, shameless. Murong Shui was tickled by his cute reaction and couldn't stop giggling. Chapter 2048. Her bright and beautiful appearance makes many of Miss Murong's supporters in the stands stare blankly. It also makes Shui Huailu gnash his teeth in hatred. Chu Tianyu doesn't pay attention to Murong Shui and Luo Yu, but stares straight at Mayan. After a long time, he says in a hoarse voice, "I will use my strength to prove that I am Yi Liangshen." His words seemed to be swearing something to Mayan. It seemed like he was trying to convince himself. Mayan sneers, too lazy to talk nonsense with him. She directly turns around and enters the mirror gazing. Chu Tianyu closes his eyes, grits his teeth, and waves his hand. "Enter." The next moment, 17 figures appear in the mirror gazing. As soon as they enter the little secret realm, everyone feels a gust of wind blowing. Their clothes are fluttering, as if it can send people and nearby trees flying together. However, no one present was moved by this scene at all. Chu Tianyu says clearly, "Jun Mayan, I'll give your Carefree team one last chance. If you admit defeat now, this match will end immediately. Shui Huailu sneers. Yeah, it's not too late to admit defeat now. Otherwise, your true colors will be revealed in a moment. The people of Azure Blue Realm will be pulled back to reality, knowing that such a trashy place can't produce any geniuses. Won't this make them sad and disappointed? Many people of the Qilin team show a relaxed smile. They admit that the Carefree team are cultivation geniuses. But they're also geniuses, and there is a gap between geniuses. These days, everywhere in Dragon Soaring Academy is talking about the Carefree team and Yi Liangqin. They've almost forgotten about the Qilin team, and they don't put the Ziyun realm in their eyes at all. It's time to let these people see who is the real Heaven's Pride. Mayan raises her hand, and the Tianimo Qin appears in her hand. She slowly sits down, and her slender fingers pluck the strings. I really wonder if your Qilin team is really strong, or if you only know how to shoot your mouth off. Lung Yuma raises the long blade in her hand and casually carries it on her shoulder. She says clearly, "A bunch of idiots. Do you understand my junior sister's meaning? If you don't, this old lady will translate for you. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't fight, get lost." This merciless sentence made the faces of everyone in the Qilin team become extremely ugly. Chu Tinyu sneered, "Fine, I understand what you mean. In battle, our Kirin team has never been afraid of anyone." As soon as he finished speaking, he released his aura, the second layer of air-piercing field. Someone in the stands exclaimed. Even Zhou Daoi and the others who were sitting below were shocked. Air-piercing field domain is one of the rare field domains in the world. It's 100 times more difficult to cultivate than ordinary field domains. Tianyu actually broke through to the second level. As for the other members of the Kirin team, they seem to have received a sign from Chu Tianyu. Following that, his aura burst forth one after another. Duan Wenbin, Chu Yuanlei, Jin Zhonghao, Murong Shui, Zhu Chongliang, and Shui Huailu. There were a total of 10 people in the Qilin team, and 7 of them had activated their domains. Furthermore, Duan Wenbin and Murong Shui were both second-layer domains. At this moment, all the cultivators in the Flying Dragon City were no longer shocked, but overwhelmed with shock. In the entire cultivation continent, how many people had activated their domain before the age of 30? And how many people could cultivate to the second layer of their domain? In the Qilin team, 4 first-layer domains and 3 second-layer domains had suddenly appeared. Chapter 2049. Chu Tianyu's domain was the rarely seen, space-piercing domain. The Kirin team is too strong, as expected of the strongest team in the Purple Cloud realm. Aw, senior brother Chu, you're so cool. I love you. Team Qilin will win. The deafening noise rang in the ears of the members of Carefree Team. Mu Yin presses her ears, the corners of her mouth slowly raising into a disdainful smile. Isn't it just a domain? Do you think we don't? As soon as she finished speaking, an invisible and powerful energy suddenly burst out from her body. In an instant, the explosive domain of the Kirin team was suppressed. Astral domain activated. In an instant, the noise in the audience seemed to have been forcibly stopped. The Dragon Soaring Academy mentors' joyful and proud smiles were still on their faces, but at this moment, they suddenly froze. Such a thick, powerful, and stable domain energy fluctuation. This was clearly a triple domain. But how was that possible? How old is Jumayan? Perhaps he wasn't even 20 years old, but he had already activated 3 domains, one higher than Chu Tianyu. At this moment, everyone was silent. Even Chu Tianyu and the other members of the Kirin squad were shocked. However, they did not know that the matter that shocked them to the point their jaws dropped was far from over. After Mu Yin activated the star field, Yun Ruhan was the first to activate the Sea of Mountains domain. Second stratum. Someone in the stand shrieked. Yun Ruhan's domain was only at the first level last time, but now it's at the second level. How could it be so fast? Lung Yuma stabbed her long blade into the ground, and the flame domain instantly exploded. It was the same level 2 domain, but it was several times thicker than than when he fought against the Japanese team. Qingju let out a roar and suddenly released the power domain. Oh! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Second domain! Another second domain! Oh my god! What kind of people are in Xiao Yao squad? Ling Yuxing slowly took a step forward. This was the first time that the absolute space domain was fully displayed on the stage of the Deer Cry banquet. The second layer of the absolute space domain was unique in the cultivation continent. Whoosh! The dean, deputy dean, and instructor of Dragon Ascension Academy stood up abruptly and stared at the young man on the stage. Space territory? It was the space domain? Furthermore, it was a second-layer space domain. This also meant that this young man had reached the peak of speed among cultivators of the same rank. No one could match up to him. There's actually someone who can activate a spatial domain. Zhou Daoi's voice trembled. It wasn't just the space domain. There was also the extremely rare Mountain Sea domain, the extremely ferocious Raging Flames domain, and the mutated power domain. Moreover, in this Deer Cry banquet, Jun Mayan is the only one who has activated the third domain. Even now, no one knew what kind of domain it was. Carefree team, who are you people? How could he gather so many monstrous geniuses? Did Elder Kong tell him not to provoke the Carefree troop because he had already foreseen their identities? Gulp, gulp. On the grandstand, many people began to swallow their saliva. 5. His voice was light as he said, 1 level 3 domain and 4 level 2 domain. They're even stronger than the Kirin team. Someone said dryly, but the Qilin team has 7 people who have activated their domains. It's still better than... Chapter 2050. The discussion had yet to die down. The last 2 members of the Carefree team, Luo Yu and Chu Moli, activated their domains simultaneously. Both of them had just activated their domains in the battle against the Fusang team, so they were still at the first level. Moreover, Luo Yu's mirror domain seemed to be the same as Mu Yan's star domain, and no one present recognized it. However, the immense power contained within it made everyone feel fearful. Even the people of the Carefree School only knew the name, Mirror Life, through Yun Ruhan. As for Chu Moli's domain, no one knew what it was called or what it was used for. But this did not hinder the shock and disbelief of everyone present. The Carefree team, a team of 7 people. Every one of them was a genius who had activated their domains. Moreover, 1 was at the 3rd level, 4 were at the 2nd level, and 2 were at the 1st level. The Carefree team and the Qilin team looked at the flowers in the mirror for the first time. In the first match, a contest of domains, the 10-man Qilin team could be said to have been completely defeated. After a moment of silence in the stands of Flying Dragon City, immediately, a small number of people erupted into fierce shouts. These were practitioners from the Azure Blue world. There were also die-hard supporters who had been attracted by the Carefree team recently. Before the start of the match, they really thought that the Carefree team was going to lose and had no chance of winning. However, it was only now that they realized that the person they supported would never disappoint them. Xue Huailu and the others' faces were ashen. They had thought that by releasing their domains, they would be able to intimidate the Carefree team. Xue Huailu was even waiting to see Lan Liu, that pretty boy, lose his head in fright and flee in panic. But who knew that Lan Liu had also activated his domain? No, the 7 people of the Carefree team, all of them had activated their domains. The one with the worst expression in the Qilin team was definitely Sui. The Qilin team used to have 6 champions in the 6 lists of the Dragon Ascension. But among the 6 champions, only Sui had not activated his domain. But he mainly practiced control, and the domain of control was the most difficult to activate. Moreover, he was only 26 or 27 years old. Not being able to activate his domain was very normal. He had never felt that he was weaker than others. But now, among the 7 people of the Carefree team, even Yun Ruhan was a little younger than him. The youngest, Luo Yu and Mu Yin, are only around 20 years old. These people's domains were like a slap to his face. Chu Tianyo's expression was heavy, yet he didn't reveal any panic, and he said in a low voice, "All of you, keep your spirits up. The Carefree squad is not as easy to deal with as you think, but we, the Qilin squad, are not afraid of anyone. Huailu's support. Yes, Captain. Huailu's expression turned serious. He raised his hands and gently waved them in the air. His spiritual power and the energy of his domain spread out together. Before long, white clouds began to appear in the sky. The air was also filled with thick fog. But this thick fog was actually light purple. The clouds condensed, and the pitter-patter of rain fell. But the strange thing was that even though he was looking at the flowers in the mirror, the howling wind and the continuous drizzle could not disperse the thick purple fog at all. When the raindrops landed on her body, Yun Ruhan frowned and said sternly, "Everyone be careful. There's something strange about this rain. It's not just the rain. There's something wrong with the fog as well. Be careful not to breathe it in." Huailu laughed heartily. At this moment, the gloominess on his face had already turned into insolence. Chapter 2051. Only now did you realize? It's already too late. How could trash like you break the Shui family's ultimate support technique, the little art of cloud and rain? Almost as soon as Huailu's voice fell, the Xiaoyao sect members felt their bodies become heavy after being tainted by the cloud and rain, and they couldn't unleash their speed to the limit. After inhaling the purple mist, they felt it even more difficult to breathe, and the circulation of their spiritual power was blocked. This was Team Qilin's #1 support. Huailu naturally had his reasons for being able to top the Ganhua proclamation. Chu Tianyo's reaction was even faster, and he shouted, "Yuanlei Wenbin! Roger, Captain!" With Chu Tianyo's order, the two strongest people in Team Qilin, apart from him, immediately soared into the sky and pounced in one direction. They didn't pounce towards Mu Yin, the strongest support, nor Yun Ruhan, the captain. Instead, it was Chu Moli, who was sitting in a wheelchair, the only long-range cultivator in Team Xiaoyao. Qin Jiu's eyes were crimson as he suddenly took a step forward and shouted. A wall of earth rose in front of Chu Moli. At the same time, he soared into the sky himself, and a huge fist, mixed with a thunderous aura, suddenly blasted out. The power of this fist was fierce, and its might was so great that it caused the expressions of everyone in Flying Dragon City to faintly change. At this moment, the wild wind in the mirror seemed to stop blowing because of the ferocity of this fist. Even the dense mist that Huailu released was scattered a little. Chu Yuanlei's eyes brightened, and he retreated instead of advancing. He shouted excitedly, "Good momentum! Let me try you!" Bang! The two men's fists collided with each other. The earth shook, and the trees in the distance creaked and fell down one after another. Many people on the grandstand gasped in shock. So strong. Too strong. I really didn't expect that Qinjiu of Team Xiaoyao to have such strength. This was a true contest of strength, a contest of the density of spiritual power. Chu Yuanlei was able to sit at the top of the sky-splitting proclamation before Yi Liangshan appeared, which was enough to show how strong he was. If it was a true contest, even Duan Wenbin of Team Xiaoyao might not be his match. However, Qin Jiu had truly withstood his attack. Xiaoyao team, how many more surprises are left for us? As it turned out, the surprise that Team Carefree could bring to everyone, or rather shock, was far from over. Qin Jiu blocked Chu Yuanlei, but Duan Wenbin charged towards Chu Moli with unstoppable force. The long sword brought with it a pressure that could split mountains and split rocks as it slashed towards the sickly young man on the wheelchair. Chu Moli slowly raised his head, facing the sword ray that resembled the scythe of the Grim Reaper. The corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. The next moment, clang. A colorful sword blocked Duan Wenbin's attack. Yun Ruhan's expression was still gentle and modest, but the light in her eyes was firm and resolute. "If you want to touch my junior brother, you'll have to ask the sword in my hand first. Duan Wenbin, your opponent is me." Duan Wenbin's pupils constricted in shock. What a vigorous aura, what a steady pressure. His eyes were burning with the desire and throbbing of a long-time opponent. "All right, Then let me see if you have the qualifications to be my opponent. The swords of the two clashed again. The next moment, the boundless rolling mountain sea domain and the mountain-splitting lightning domain erupted at the same time. The entire flower-gazing mirror began to shake. The spectating cultivators with low cultivation even felt their consciousness and primordial spirits tremble. Chapter 2052. Chu Tianyo's gaze darkened. The carefree squad was indeed very strong. Not just one of them, but all of them were ridiculously strong. But until now, Chu Tianyo's gaze fell on the beautiful girl who was pressing her fingers on the zither. Until now, the person who called himself Yi Liangchen still hadn't made a move. Hee, how can I miss out on such an exciting battle? Murong Shue's face flushed with excitement. As soon as she finished speaking, she soared into the air. The damask of cloud frost in her hand rolled like a snake, directly attacking Chu Moli's face. Chu Moli's lips curled into a bashful smile. Is everyone treating me as their target? Do they really think I'm so weak? His slender fingers lightly moved the armrest of the wheelchair, but he didn't move in the end. This was because Murong Shui was stopped by a long saber before she could reach Chu Moli. Lung Yuma soared into the air, flames raging under her feet, and the long saber on her back. Want to play? Want to find excitement? Sure. I'm bored too. I'll play with you. Murong Shui chuckled. You? I'm afraid you're no match for me. Lung Yuma's expression turned cold. Are you looking down on me? Murong Shui's smile became even more confident. How could that be? Who in Divine Elephant City doesn't know the carefree squad's blazing berserk blade, Lung Yuma? If we fight head-on, I'm no match for you. But have you forgotten that I used to be at the top of the void list? What I'm good at isn't swords, nor close combat, but illusions. Before she could finish her sentence, the domain that had been faintly restrained was suddenly released. The void list tested a cultivator's divine sense, state of mind, and willpower. Those who were able to pass this test were naturally outstanding in this aspect, and Murong Shui was one of them. This was because her domain was created to construct illusions. Lung Yuma only felt her vision blur, and the surrounding scenery instantly changed. And the rain that originally only made her body feel slightly heavy now felt like heavy lead stones, binding her hands and feet. Even in her mind, complicated images began to appear. What's with that look? Who told you to look at me like that? Today, I'll beat you to death, you animal. I'll let you know the consequences of disobeying me. Your mother died in my hands. You won't be able to escape from me either. Lung family, everything is mine. Lung Yuma's eyes were scarlet red. Crazy killing intent and despair surged out from the depths of her soul. However, just as her spirit was on the verge of collapse, a melodious tune slowly drifted into her ears and seeped into her soul. It also caused the shackles and fog around her to slowly disperse. Lung Yuma's eyes were clear, and the long blade in her hand suddenly slashed out. With a clang, she cut off a section of the white silk that was aimed at her throat. Murong Shui's expression was one of shock. You actually dispelled my illusions so quickly? How is that possible? Lung Yuma wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and revealed a sinister smile. Create illusions and confuse the mind. My junior sister is here, and you want to play this trick with us? Have you forgotten who's currently ranked first on the void list? Murong Shui suddenly turned her head to look at the young girl sitting in the corner not far away with a stern expression. Yes, it was the young girl's zither that had dispelled her illusion. Chapter 2053. This girl called herself Yi Liangchen. She was the one who had defeated all 6 Dragon Ascension rolls and replaced her at the top of the Void roll. Yi Liangchen? No. Murong Shui shook her head. What was wrong with her? Was she doubting her captain's words? Her captain never lied. If he said he was Yi Liangchen, then he must be Yi Liangchen. Murong Yin plucked at the strings and glanced at Shui Huailu with a faint smile. So this is the genius from the #1 support family in the Purple Cloud realm? If this is all the support of your Qilin team is capable of, then wait to be suppressed by our carefree team. Shui Huailu's expression turned ferocious when he heard this. The reason why the Shui family had such a status in the Purple Cloud Realm southern continent was because of the Shui family's support skills. Many cultivators and sects in the Purple Cloud Realm flocked to the Shui family's disciples. It was because of the Shui family's help that these cultivators could unleash their strongest abilities. Now, a naive little girl dared to question the achievements of the Shui family? Shui Huailu let out a shrill laugh and flipped his wrist. A blue fan suddenly appeared in his hand. This fan was called the Turning Cloud Fan. It was a superior level 9 spiritual weapon. Even in the Purple Cloud Realm, a rank 9 spiritual artifact was extremely rare. Shui Huailu was a junior of the Shui family, yet he was able to use the Turning Cloud Fan. This showed how much importance the Shui family placed on him. As soon as the Turning Cloud Fan appeared, it expanded several times. The spiritual power in Shui Huailu's body and the power of his domain surged towards the Turning Cloud Fan. Beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. The veins on his face bulged from the exertion. But in his eyes, there was a sinister and venomous smile. Turning Cloud Fan, overturning Soul Rain. The Turning Cloud Fan wasn't just a simple competition. It was going to devour their primordial spirits bit by bit. Even if they took healing pills after the competition, they wouldn't be able to recover from the damage. Normally, Shui Huailu wouldn't use this special skill of the Shui family. Firstly, it would make him seem too sinister. Secondly, he had to pay a high price to use the Turning Cloud Fan. But now he couldn't care less. Those bastards from the Carefree team. That pretty boy tried to seduce Murong Shui. This woman in front of him completely disregarded him and the Shui family. How could he tolerate this? Die! Shui Huailu roared angrily as he waved the cloud-flipping fan in his hand. You brought this upon yourselves. Below the stage, the expressions of the few long-tongued instructors changed drastically. The three venerables, Ri, Yu, and Xing, were even more shocked as they said, Soul Captivating Rain, it's just a spar, but he actually used Soul Captivating Rain. Shui Huailu is too vicious. Although the audience couldn't see the power of the soul-subduing rain, at first glance, they all knew how powerful it was. However, when the cyan fan fanned, the clouds and rain in the sky had turned into a horrifying green color, and the dripping rain was no longer pitter-patter, but dense and continuous. And it became a huge drop, a drop. Every drop that fell to the ground made a sizzling sound in the mirror. That patch of grass and trees was actually corroded by a single drop of rain, forming a huge pit. Good, very good. I told you that Great God Shui is the best support. What's a mere Ganhua rankings to him? But this is just a spar. Isn't it too much to use such a vicious technique? Chapter 2054. Since it's a competition, it's only natural to determine the victor. Humph! They could only blame the members of the Carefree Squad for overestimating themselves and provoking them. Especially that woman called Jun Mayan. Did she really think that she could be so arrogant just because she won a few rounds in the competition? Right now, God Shui is teaching them a lesson. In the stands, there was a lot of discussion because of this unforeseen event. The supporters of the Kirin team cheered loudly. The supporters of the Carefree Squad, on the other hand, had their hearts in their throats. Murong Shui turned to look at the cloud-flipping fan in Shui Huailu's hand and the azure rain clouds. Her expression changed drastically. Shui Huailu, what are you doing? This is just a spar in the Deer Cry Grand Banquet. You used the overturning soul rain. Are you trying to put people to death? Shui Huailu's eyes were filled with madness. He laughed loudly. Murong Shui, didn't you say I was useless and that I liked that pretty boy? Now, I'll let you see who will be the one to suffer a crushing defeat in this competition. He waved the fan in his hand again. The corrosive raindrops that were falling from the sky suddenly seemed to be pulled by something. All of them whizzed towards Luo Yu. Luo Yu's expression changed. Even though he was far away, he could feel how terrifying the raindrops were. The spiritual energy in his body seemed to be attracted by something and was boiling, wanting to break through his meridians. The air was filled with a rancid smell that made people nauseous. Little Seven, the people of the Xiao Yao sect all screamed. He wanted to rush over to help, but he was unable to do so. The Bao in Chu Moli's hand slowly appeared. Ling Yuxing's absolute space domain had already been completely released. However, at this moment, everyone heard a light and sweet-sounding voice. "Don't move!" Mayan presses her hands on the strings of the zither. She smiles disdainfully, and her gaze is like a knife. If I can't even deal with this little bit of negative interference, then what kind of carefree team's first support would I be? As soon as he finished speaking, the originally faint sound of the zither suddenly rang out like a powerful army. After hearing her voice, the Xiao Yao sect members, who were originally anxious and panicky, all calmed down. Even Luo Yu stood calmly on the spot, looking at Xue Huailu with disdain and ridicule. "Idiot! Isn't she better than my 6th senior sister? Competing in support. I'll make you cry for your parents when I lose. That's not right. How could these people not cry for their parents when competing with their 6th senior sister?" Voila! Just as this thought flashed through Falling Rain's mind, the corrosive green raindrops had already reached him. However, in the next moment, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared around him. When the cyan raindrops touched this barrier, not only were they unable to penetrate it, but they were also unable to penetrate it. Instead, it seemed to have been repelled by some great force and was sent flying in a certain direction. Xue Huailu's expression changed drastically, and his face was filled with terror, because these blue raindrops were actually flying towards him. No one knew better than him how terrifying these raindrops were. Save me, save me. Jin Zhonghao, Shi Jingfeng, and the others from the Kirin team reacted quickly and blocked the attack. However, he was still a step too late. A few drops of blue rain fell on Xue Huailu's body. He immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered. When his clothes came into contact with the raindrops, it burned a hole. His skin and flesh sizzled as they burned. However, the most painful thing was that his soul was being burned. It was as if someone had lit a fire in his brain, causing him to fall to the ground, rolling and wailing incessantly. Chapter 2055. This tragic scene makes everyone in the Qilin team turn ashen. The match has just begun, and their team support has already been hit hard. Jin Zhonghao fiercely glares at Mu Yin. "It's just a competition. Aren't you being too ruthless?" The burning of the primordial spirit is an irreversible injury, and Xue Huailu's strength is likely to never recover. Mu Yin sneers, giving him a taste of his own medicines. When Xue Huailu attacked Liu, these people didn't feel that he was ruthless. Now that their own support has been seriously injured, and he's jumping around, saying that it's just a competition, how can there be such a cheap thing in this world? Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a cold smile. "However, since you say that I'm ruthless, I have to make this accusation a reality. The real reciprocity has only just begun." As soon as her voice falls, the sound of the zither in her hand suddenly changes. From a powerful army, it becomes melodious and sweet, full of sorrow. Looking at the flowers in the mirror, the Qilin team shows a dazed expression for a moment. Even the cultivators in the stands are intoxicated by this beautiful music, as if they're surrounded by green mountains and clear waters and fragrant flowers. A refreshing fragrance lingers at the tip of their noses. Soon after, everyone sees fluttering pink petals falling in the mirror. The petals are like snow, pink snow. As they fall to the ground, they slowly melt into the ground, disappearing without a trace. Some also slowly fall on the hair and shoulders of the Qilin team members. For a moment, the originally tense battlefield seems to be filled with tenderness and sweetness. Chu Tenyu stares blankly at the zither-playing girl not far away. Her clothes are as white as snow, and the petals are like rain, setting off her beautiful appearance and white jade-like skin. She's like a fairy that has drifted down from the ninth heaven. So distant, so ethereal, and so soul-thirsty. Chu Tinyo's heart suddenly tightens. He absent-mindedly turns his head and looks at a petal that has fallen on his shoulder. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. His face changes greatly. Everyone, be careful of these petals. Mu Yan's movement of plucking the strings remains the same, leisurely and languid, but her mouth hooks up in a playful smile. Your reaction is fast, but you're still a step too late. As soon as her voice falls, her slender fingers suddenly move on the strings. Hum! A sharp tremor was accompanied by a series of explosions and screams. In the next moment, Jin Zhonghao, Shi Jingfeng, and Guo Jinxing fell to the ground. Jin Zhonghao's domain had been broken, and he was unable to use it. Shi Jingfeng and Guo Jinxing were covered in blood. Mu Yan shook her head regretfully. She had once used the improved version of Petal Shower's attack in Yinwu Continent when she attacked Jin Hongmen. Such an attack, coupled with floating like dream, could catch the opponent off guard and deal a fatal blow. But that was only for the weak. The members of the Kirin team were too strong. Therefore, this attack only injured 3 people, and they were only superficial wounds. What a pity. While thinking like this, Mu Yan's hands changed the tune of the zither. Graceful Feather, activated. From now on, it was time for her true support skills to be activated. Mu Yan is regretting here, but everyone in the stands is stupefied. Although the competition had just begun, the Carefree team was completely suppressing the Kirin team. How is this possible? And that Jun Mayan. They already knew that this girl was the #1 support in the Dear Cry banquet. But that was based on the fact that the Kirin team was not participating. Chapter 2056. However, at this time, Jun Mayan makes her move. They know why the other members of the Carefree team are shining brilliantly, but the people of Azure Blue World always mention the strongest member of the Carefree team, Jun Mayan. Because this girl's support is really too strong. So strong that Shui Huailu doesn't have the slightest strength to fight back against her. In particular, when the Graceful Feather is launched, the originally evenly matched Qin Jiao and Chu Yuan Lei, Yin Ruhan and Duan Wenbin, Lung Yuma and Murong Shui, the battle begins to tilt in the Carefree team's favor. Shui Huailu suddenly coughs out a mouthful of blood and gets up from the ground. His eyes look at Mayan with mad resentment. He suddenly screams, What are you still standing there for? Can't you tell who's the one who's controlling this battle? That slut is just an insignificant support. You still haven't killed him. Su Yi, Jin Zhonghao, Zhu Chongliang, did you hear that? Shui Huailu's words are very unpleasant. So unpleasant that Zhu Chongliang and the others frown in disgust. But his words were not wrong. At this point, they would be fools if they still couldn't tell who was the one who was controlling the outcome of the battle. Kill. They must first kill Mayan and expel her from the flower-gazing mirror. Otherwise, this match will really be in danger. Their Qilin team's reputation will also hit rock bottom. They look at each other and quickly soar into the sky, whistling towards Mayan. Only Jin Zhonghao stays where he is, a 9-jointed whip appearing in his hand. Only his 9-jointed whip is different from the others. When it is swung into the air, it actually separates into 9. With a crashing sound, a crack is opened in the air. Although Jin Zhonghao's domain has just been broken, in terms of fighting strength, he is second only to Duan Wenbin and Chu Yuan Lei. Moreover, he is the only long-range cultivator in the Qilin team. The 9 whips in the sky are swinging up and down, making a snapping sound. The crack in the space is getting bigger and bigger, slowly turning into terrible lightning. These 9 lightning bolts contain the pressure of a strong person, and it really falls on a Jindan stage cultivator. It will definitely strike a mortal body until it is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. At this time, Mu Yan had just activated Graceful Feather and did not have any spare energy to complete Divine Hands Weave the Heavens in a short period of time. In the stands, the supporters of the Kirin team were seething. It's the 9th Heaven's Thunder. The 9th Heaven's Thunder has been activated. No one has ever been able to escape from God Jin's attack. Haha, Great God Jin's long-range attack is invincible. Jun Mayan is dead for sure this time. Jin Zhonghao's eyes were filled with determination and confidence. He was about to swing the whip in his hand. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically, and he took several steps back. Almost at the same time he retreated, an arrow whistled as it flew past his neck. Jin Zhonghao looked over and saw the weak-looking young man in the wheelchair opposite him. The young man gave him a gentle and shy smile and said, "Don't disturb Junior sister from playing the guqin." The bow and arrow in his hand slowly disappeared. The action just now had made his face a little pale. The strong wind in the mystic realm also made him cough from time to time. No matter how one looked at him, he was a sickly young man who would be blown away by the wind. However, Jin Zhonghao stared at him with fear in his eyes. At that moment, he felt the threat of death. If he had lashed out with that whip, the one who would have died wouldn't have been Mayan, but him. Chapter 2057. The stands fell into a deathly silence, followed by a thunderous roar. Chumoli! Chumoli! So cool, Chumoli! Silver bow, godly arrow Chumoli. I like to see great god Chu shoot arrows. Ninth Heaven's Thunder Jin Zhonghao against Silver bow, godly arrow Chumoli. Who will win in the end? Jin Zhonghao touches his aching neck and takes a deep breath. He looks at Chu Moli with a burning gaze, his eyes overflowing with fighting spirit. The number 1 long-range attack cultivator? This title is destined to be his. Jin Zhonghao's attack on Mayan is fruitless, but Su Yi and Zhu Chongliang's attacks have arrived. Especially Zhu Chongliang. He was originally the top of the Fuxi list. His speed is so fast that when he attacks, there's only an afterimage left. However, his speed is fast, but someone's speed is faster than him. Bang! The two figures collide. Zhu Chongliang retreats a few steps, then suddenly stops. He looks at the youngster in front of him, his eyes bewildered. He was clearly the first to rush towards Mayan just now, but this youngster is the first to arrive. He directly intercepts his attack. Moreover, the shining silver needles are right in front of him. If he can't control his speed and charges forward, his throat would be pierced by the silver needles. That would be his final outcome. Ling Yuxing holds the absorbing magic needle, the binding silk gently fluttering as he says in a low voice, "If you want to make a move against little junior sister, you'll have to get past me first." Su Yi's attack speed isn't as fast as Zhu Chongliang and Jin Zhonghao. However, he is already prepared to attack as early as he's advancing. One after another, puppets appear around him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30. The people who were originally distracted by the other battles are stunned by the increasing number of puppets around him. Heavens, how many puppets are there already? 50? 60? The number of puppets is still increasing. Great God Su is truly worthy of being called Great God Su. Haha, not just anyone can become the top of the EU list. Haha, did you forget that the current top of the EU list is Yi Liangshan? Even so, Su Yi is still the most powerful control cultivator after Yi Liangshan. Yes. The members of the Carefree Squad were really too stupid. They actually allowed Su Yi to release all of her puppets. Now, the number of enemies they had to face would increase by tens of times. Team Carefree will lose for sure, ha! A proud smile appeared on Su Yi's face when he heard the exclamations from the audience. The grievance he felt when he had been slaughtered on the Heiyu list and his position at the top had been snatched away disappeared without a trace at this moment. Yap Liangchen? Yap Liangchen is nothing. In terms of controlling puppets, Su Yi was the strongest. It doesn't matter if Yi Liangshan is the captain or Jun Mayan. He, Su Yi, had to prove this point in front of everyone. That bunch of idiots like Xue Huailu and Murong Xue are completely suppressed by Mayan. Today, he, Su Yi, was the most dazzling superstar. 88 puppets of all sizes appear in the mountain forest, surrounding Mayan, who is still playing the zither. The puppet's combat power was naturally not strong, but on an evenly matched battlefield, a low-level Anidia puppet could decide the outcome of the battle. What's more, there are 88 of them now. 88 puppets simply surrounded Mayan and Luo Yu, who was the only one left behind Mayan. Chapter 2058. Su Yi laughed, using his divine sense to control the puppets to get closer. Jun Mayan. Lan Lu. It's not too late for you to admit defeat. Luo Yu glanced at Mayan, who was still playing the zither, and turned to look at the puppets surrounding her. She asked innocently, "That's it? Just these few puppets?" The smile on Su Yi's face froze, anger flitting across his eyes. Then he sneered, "Death is at hand, and you're still so stubborn. Or do you think that Murong Shui will come to save a pretty boy like you?" Lu Yu let out a long sigh. Then the corners of her lips rose as she said unhurriedly, "You can get first place on the He-Yu list by controlling these few puppets? It turns out that the young cultivators of the Ziyun realm are all so weak. No wonder Sixth Senior Sister was able to slaughter all of your rankings so easily." Lu Yu said the last sentence very softly. The people in the stands couldn't hear it, but Su Yi, who was watching flowers in the mirror, heard it. He could no longer maintain his arrogant smile, and a strong murderous intent emerged. "Good. You're very stubborn. Let's see if you can still talk so big after being beaten up by my puppets." Su Yi hadn't finished speaking. Lu Yu suddenly raised her finger in the air. At the same time, the mirror field was released to its greatest extent. In the blink of an eye, clattering puppets jumped down from the sky one after another. These puppets, including Su Yi's, had naturally been made and hidden in the storage space. But puppets were usually only the size of a fist in the storage space. Cultivators used their divine sense to activate the puppets and then control their movements. That was how they became battle puppets that could assist in battle. But to activate hundreds of puppets, connect the sea of consciousness with the crystal nucleus in the puppets' bodies, and control their every movement, all took time. Sui had been preparing since he entered the mirror viewing flowers, and when he attacked Mayan, he had already prepared all 88 puppets. This speed was already extremely fast. It also represented how sharp his divine sense was, and how vast his sea of consciousness was. The people in the stands marveled at his strength, precisely because of this. But at this moment, the scene that appeared before them made everyone dumbfounded. Because in the mirror viewing flowers, after Su Yi released the puppets, more puppets of various sizes began to appear. There were humanoid creatures, animal-shaped creatures, and even insect-shaped creatures so tiny that they were impossible to control. Moreover, the puppets that Su Yi released just now were released one by one at an extremely fast speed. In just a few dozen breaths, he had already released 88 of them. But now, Luo Yu's puppets were released by the dozens. 20, 40, 70, gulp. Someone gulped. Well, 100. However, the number of puppets was still increasing. 100, 130, 180, 200. The crowd shrieked like a groundhog. But the problem was that the number of puppets was still increasing. They surrounded Mu Yin and Luo Yu, who were inside. Outside, Su Yi's 88 puppets were also encircled. In an instant, the 88 puppets, which had been making a huge ruckus a moment ago, had no way to advance or retreat. All alone, he looked exceptionally miserable and pitiful. Su Yi's eyes widened as she stared at the scene in front of her in a daze. His voice was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't make another sound. Chapter 2059. Luo Yu's smile became brighter and brighter. The dimples on her cheeks were faintly discernible. She was indescribably cute. "What did you just say? Beaten by the puppets until they can't get up? May I ask who you're talking about?" She looked at Su Yi in disbelief. Luo Yu sneered. "You want to compete with me on the number of puppets you can control? I, Xiaoqi, have never been afraid of anyone." Yes, he only controlled 220 puppets now. But in reality, after he broke through to the Golden Core stage, if he wanted to, he could control 300 puppets without a problem. And right now, he was only at the Golden Core stage. Luo Yu waved her hand, and a fierce light flashed in her eyes. "Destroy all these annoying puppets for me." With a command, the 200 puppets seemed to have a life of their own and rushed towards Su Yi's 88 puppets agilely. In reality, the cultivation of the puppets Su Yi controlled was higher than Luo Yu's. After all, Su Yi was already at the 8th level of the Golden Core stage. But there were too many ants to kill an elephant. Su Yi desperately controlled the puppets to escape, But in a short period of 15 minutes, half of the puppets were destroyed. His sea of consciousness was also injured. After a moment of silence, the cultivators on the spectator's stand immediately burst into an uproar. 200 puppets. How can someone control more than 200 puppets? This is too terrifying. What's more terrifying is that he is only at the Golden Core stage. For someone to have such a powerful divine sense at the Golden Core stage, when he reaches the nascent soul stage or the leaving body stage, how heaven-defying will he become? Oh my God! What kind of monsters are the Xiao Yao team? I thought they would definitely lose against the Qilin team. But now, they are completely suppressing the Qilin team. The ones who were more shocked were not the cultivators on the spectator stand, but Long Teng's instructor and Lan Feng. Zhou Daoi swallowed and looked at Lan Feng in shock. That is the mirror field? Lan Feng stared at Luo Yu for a long time before shaking his head. I don't know either. Even in the Lan royal family, the mirror field is only a legend. Was it really possible that it was the mirror field that could only be activated by the purest god's descendants? But if it wasn't for the mirror field, how could someone at the Golden Core stage control so many puppets? In the mirror, Luo Yu, who was chasing after Su Yi and beating a drowning dog, had no idea that someone had already guessed his domain. At this moment, an unbelievable scene appeared on the battlefield. The Qilin team, whose cultivation base was generally 5 small levels higher than the Carefree team, was actually completely suppressed by the other team. This was something that had never happened since the founding of the Dragon Soaring Academy and the establishment of the Kirin team. Chu Qinyo's hands, which were hanging by his side, slowly loosened and then clenched. In the next moment, a long sword appeared in his hand. The tall figure soared into the sky and stayed in midair. The powerful, space-piercing field was slowly released. The inconspicuous silver longsword in his hand began to emit a dark red glow. After that, he didn't do anything. Suddenly, a sword light flashed around him and slashed downwards. Boom! The first sword strike landed on the body of Wang Qin, who had already gained the upper hand. Qin Jiao abruptly spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, and his entire person was sent flying. A huge wound appeared on his chest. The second slash was aimed at Yun Ruhan. Yun Ruhan's reaction was extremely fast, and she quickly raised her sword to block. However, the flowing light sword that belonged to Master In Xiao made a cracking sound and suddenly shattered. Chapter 2060. Yun Ruhan also flew back more than 10 meters, heavily falling to the ground. The third sword slashes towards Lung Yuma. A large pit suddenly appears on the ground. Half of Lung Yuma's body is buried in the pit, her face deathly pale. The fourth sword slashes, the wind howls. The hundreds of puppets controlled by Luo Yu explode with a loud bang, shattering into fragments and scattering everywhere. The stands are completely silent. In just a few short breaths for short swords, Chu Tianyu only used 4 swords to completely reverse the good situation of the Carefree team. This is the strength of the Kirin team's captain. This is the #1 genius of Dragon Soaring Academy. Chu Tianyu. Brother Chu, I love you. Brother Chu is too handsome. Heavens, I'm gonna faint. How could Brother Chu be so handsome? The Carefree team isn't weak at all, but Brother Chu is too strong. He alone can crush everyone. Someone stares at the dark red sword in Chu Tianyu's hand, breathing heavily. Can't you see? The sword in Brother Chu's hand is a divine weapon. I know, it's one of the few divine weapons in the Xiojin continent, the Scarlet Flame Sword. Crushing strength, crushing godly weapon. At this moment, the Kirin team supporters finally let go of the boulder in their hearts. Ha ha ha. So what if the Carefree team is strong? As long as Brother Chu is here, the Kirin team will never lose. Chu Tianyu hovers in the air, looking down at the girl playing the zither below. His eyes darken. He says in a low voice, "Sure, Jingfeng, Guijinxing Su Yi, listen to my command. Don't worry about the others. Attack mine with all your might. Banish her from the mirror." Yes. Zhu Chongliang, Jin Zhonghao, Shui Huailu. Hold off the others. Don't let them destroy. Roger, Murong Shui, Chu Yuan Lei, Duan Wenbin, take advantage of the victory to pursue and secure victory. Yes. Chu Tianyu takes a deep breath, his voice loud and clear, his eyes resolute and cold. Finish the match within a quarter of an hour. Don't let down the prestige of our Kirin team. The eyes of the Kirin team suddenly blaze, shouting in unison, team name, captain. At this moment, the situation has reversed. From Team Carefree to suppressing Team Kirin. It became Team Qilin chasing after Team Carefree. Everyone could see that Team Carefree was in danger. And the most dangerous one is definitely Junmayan. This weak girl, the strongest support in the Deer Cry banquet, would be besieged by 3 experts until she was expelled from the flower in the mirror. What kind of desperate situation would the Carefree squad, which was already strapped for cash, face after losing this support? In the stands, a supporter from the Purple Cloud realm was so anxious that he was about to cry. It's over, it's over. If Junmayan is eliminated, then the Carefree team will really lose. But there are too few people in the Carefree squad. No one can save her. The others can't even protect themselves. She's just a support. How could she block 3 attackers? However, after shouting for a long time, these people turned around and discovered that the people from the Azure Blue realm were calm. It could even be said to be leisurely and indifferent. What's wrong with you guys? Had he given up on himself? Why aren't you worried about the Carefree team at all? The cultivator from the Azure Blue realm replied with a mysterious smile. Of course, we're not worried. Soon, you'll know the reason. The support Zither player is the weakest. 3 attackers can get rid of Junmayan. You'll soon know how foolish and naive such thinking is. Chapter 2061. In the mirror, Murong Shui and the other 2 were forcing Lung Yuma and the others to retreat. Ling Yuxing and the others were also blocked and could not return to help. Shi Jingfeng, Guo Jinxing, and Sui had already surrounded Mu Yin. Sui once again summoned more than 10 puppets. Shi Jingfeng and Guo Jinxing did not seem to be famous, but they were both at the 8th and 9th level of the Golden Core stage. In terms of attack power, they were much stronger than Sui. At this time, the 3 tall figures were surrounded by the frail girl. No one believes that Junmayan can still escape and ascend to heaven. Go to hell? Shi Jingfeng roared. He suddenly raised his giant axe and fiercely chopped down in Mayan's direction. At the same time, Guo Jinxing's meteor hammer. Sui's puppets also attacked. Boom! Rocks cracked, smoke and dust filled the air, and the sound of the zither stopped. In the stands, everyone held their breath. They were waiting for the girl's wounded body to slowly disappear. However, in the next moment, a pig scream came from the smoke and dust. Then, there were a few bangs. One by one, tall bodies were kicked out along with blood splattering everywhere. While everyone was surprised, they saw a snow-like silver light shoot up to the sky. Hovering in the air, she looked at Chu Tianyu from afar. The girl with snow-like skin and fluttering white clothes held a crystal-clear sword in her hand. She pointed the sword at Chu Tianyu, and her mouth curved into a cold smile. Impersonating my identity and injuring my fellow apprentices, it's time to pay them back. Chu Tianyu. In an instant, the 3rd layer of the star domain erupted. A huge pressure was suddenly released, accompanied by the reverberating sound of the zither. Below, Shui Huailu and the others with the weakest cultivation spat out a mouthful of blood. The injured Shi Jingfeng and the others were about to get up, but now they knelt on the ground again. Their knees could not stop trembling. Even Duan Wenbin and the others turned pale, faintly feeling that they could no longer use their spiritual power. On the contrary, the injuries of Lung Yuma and the others were slowly healing, and the spiritual power that they had used was gradually replenished. Feather Grace, completed. Echo Aura, completed. A 6th level Shin musician technique, as long as one spends enough time and spiritual power to prepare. The lingering effect of the skill would linger on the battlefield for a short period of time. There was a deathly silence in the stands. What happened just now? Someone murmured. Am I seeing things? Isn't Junmayan an auxiliary musician? She she just used one move and sent Senior Sure and the others flying. With his early stage golden core cultivation, he can fly without a flying sword. Her domain, the triple domain, turns out is not for support, but it's a powerful combat domain. Dreamy voices rang out from every corner of the stands. From the beginning, it was sporadic, but then it suddenly exploded in the entire Flying Dragon City. Yes, the entire Flying Dragon City was boiling. What kind of monster is Junmayan? Strictly speaking, the cultivators of the cultivation world are divided into two main categories. One was the main combat type, and the other was the main refining type. The main combat type cultivators studied how to go on the battlefield and kill the enemy. And the main refining type cultivators mainly studied how to indirectly increase the strength of cultivators, such as alchemists, refiners, talisman formation masters, doctors, and so on. The main combat type cultivators were divided into two types, the combat type and the auxiliary type. Chapter 2062. In the Shojin continent, which is biased towards team combat, both combat and auxiliary cultivators are extremely valued. But these two kinds of cultivators, even if they are both combat-type cultivators, their cultivation direction and methods are completely different. Especially the auxiliary cultivators of musicians. They have always been regarded as pure support with no fighting power, and the weak who need to be protected. Correspondingly, the support ability of musicians is much stronger than that of other auxiliary cultivators. Therefore, when the people of Flying Dragon City saw Mayan's powerful support ability, they had already determined that she doesn't have any fighting power. But everything that just happened has completely subverted their understanding. A Zither Master with a heaven-defying support ability killed 3 experts of the Qilin team in the blink of an eye. Are they really not seeing things? At this time, the cultivators of Azure Blue Realm, who have been waiting to watch a good show, finally let out a breath. They look at the cultivators of Purple Cloud Realm with an expression that says, "You mortals really haven't seen the world. Do you know what kind of achievements Junmayan has in our Azure Blue Realm? An auxiliary Zither Master directly beat the strongest team of our Azure Blue Realm Spirit and Martial Arts Academy without the power to fight back. Can you imagine? A weak girl at the peak of Anidia defeated the head of the 4th great family of our Azure Blue Realm, Tion Haiba, who is at the nascent soul stage. Can you believe it? The 6 Xiao Yao sons are all combat cultivators, and only Junmayan is a weak auxiliary cultivator, the only weakness of the Xiao Yao team? Ha, really too stupid and too naive. The cultivators of Purple Cloud Realm look at the people of Azure Blue Realm with sluggish expressions. These low-grade cultivators, who were usually submissive and fearful whenever they saw them, were now looking at them with disdain. Then they tell them about Junmayan's terror and strength, spittle flying everywhere. In the end, they come to a conclusion almost in unison. Are the 7 Xiao Yao sons strong? Of course, all of them are very strong. But if you ask who is the strongest among the 7 Xiao Yao sons, then it is absolutely Junmayan, an auxiliary Zither Master who can reverse the situation of a battle. At the same time, a terrifying sword cultivator with explosive fighting power. Have you ever seen such an evildoer in Purple Cloud Realm? Ha! A group of stupid mortals. Just wait for the demoness. Oh no. Jun Mosie's full display of strength to tremble in fear. Looking at flowers in the mirror, Chu Tianyu looked at the sword-wielding girl with a complicated expression. When she was playing the zither, she was delicate and beautiful. When she looked up, the green mountains were visible, and when she looked back, the sunset clouds were far away. She was like the crystal-clear snow on the Tian Shan mountain, ethereal and ethereal. But in the blink of an eye, the zither disappeared and the sword was unsheathed. In an instant, all the flowing wind, returning snow, and flower-like shadows disappeared. All that was left was the biting cold that had been tempered by the wind and snow. But Chu Tianyu only felt as if his heart was being fiercely gripped by something. especially clear in the face of snow, even more beautiful in the frost. At this moment, the cold, sword-wielding girl was extremely beautiful and dazzling. It was so dazzling that a sense of inferiority arose in his heart. Chu Tianyu shook his head abruptly, restrained his turbulent emotions, and concentrated his attention on the battlefield. He looks at the girl in front of him and says in a low voice, "Jun Mayan, I don't want to be your enemy, but I must seize the mysterious heaven bead. Yap Liangchun is me, and only me. In this match, it would be better for us to stop here and consider it a draw. But from now on, no matter what compensation you want, I can give it to you." Chapter 2063. Mine looks at him with a smile that isn't a smile. "I heard that if you tell too many lies, even you yourself will believe it to be true. I didn't believe that there would be such a brazen and self-deceiving person, but now I believe it. Chu Tianyu, do you want to go to the 1,000 average list and split sky list to take a look? The name Fuchen is still clearly ranked below Yi Liangchen. Where does this man get the face to say that Yi Liangchen can only be him?" Chu Tianyu sees the disdain in the girl's eyes, and his heart is filled with irritation and anger. Jun Mayan is looking down on him. Not only does she look down on his impersonation, she looks down on his strength even more. Chu Tianyu was able to crawl out of the hell-like place of the Dinghua Manor, which naturally proves his talent and excellence. No matter where he is the focus of attention, the object of admiration and admiration. He has never cared about those infatuations and admiration. But at this moment, this girl's disdain and contempt makes him burn with anger. "Jun Mayan, you should know very well that you are not my opponent." Chu Tianyu grits his teeth. "I just don't want to hurt you. Gold Core first rank and peak Gold Core. That is the difference between heaven and earth. For heaven's prides like them, killing people above their level is a common occurrence. But between heaven's prides of the same level, the difference of one level can be a natural chasm." Chu Tianyu pauses and lowers his voice to a very low level. Except for Mayan, who is also in the sky, no one can hear him. The Dragon Ascension 6 list will adjust the difficulty according to the cultivator's cultivation. Even if you can reach the top of the list, it doesn't mean that you can beat me. No, you are definitely not my opponent. His face shows a rare pleading. "Jun Mayan, I will say it again, I don't want to hurt you, but I must get the mysterious heaven bead." Mayan slightly frowns, because she sees not only pleading in Chu Tianyu's eyes, but also madness that is close to despair. As if he doesn't get the mysterious heaven bead, he will sink into hell. But she quickly throws this thought to the back of her mind. Why Chu Tianyu wants to impersonate, why he wants to get the mysterious heaven bead, it has nothing to do with her. She only knows that she must get the mysterious heaven bead. Otherwise, how can she advance? How can she become stronger? How to protect something important? The 7 absolute sword in Mu Yan's hand spun in a circle, and the spiritual power and domain field around her suddenly expanded. At the same time, the sound of the zither hummed. Lotus Steps was activated. The girl's clothes fluttered in the strong wind and the flower in the mirror. Her black hair, which was like a waterfall, drew the outline of an ethereal, dreamlike landscape painting, but it was also mixed with a biting chill. Chu Tianyu, you're blabbering so much nonsense. Even if you don't find it annoying, I find it annoying. I will still say the same thing. You can defeat me, and Team Qilin can defeat Team Carefree. Then, you can talk to me about the ownership of the mysterious Heaven Pearl. Chu Tianyu takes a deep breath. The pleading and unbearable look in his eyes instantly turns into determination. Fine, Jun Mayan, you brought this upon yourself. From now on, I won't show any mercy. I will make the Carefree team suffer a crushing defeat. I will let everyone know that the Qilin team is the strongest team in the Deer Cried banquet. As soon as he finished speaking, he completely released the space-breaking field. Immediately after, the raging flame sword soars into the sky, turning into countless sparks, ruthlessly chopping down in Mayan's direction. The power of this sword was several times stronger than the one Chu Tianyu had just used on Yun Ruhan and the others. Chapter 2064. Blotting out the sky and covering the earth, the mountain rocks cracked, and the flower in the mirror shook violently. Everyone in the stands revealed a shocked and aghast expression. Under the raging sword, the girl in white appeared so weak, as if she would be cut into several pieces at any time. This is Chu Tianyu's piercing sky flame cut. Like raging lava, it cuts through the void, and wherever it goes, everything is destroyed. Once the bow is drawn, there is no turning back. Once the sword is drawn, there is bound to be waves of killing intent, making people unable to avoid it. The supporters of the Carefree team all suck in a breath of cold air, their faces pale, and they want to scream for her to quickly dodge. But they find that under such monstrous killing intent of the sword, their voices seem to be stuck in their throats, unable to be released. However, the next moment, a scene that makes everyone dumbfounded happens. Just when everyone thinks that the piercing sky flame cut will tear Jun Mai into pieces, or make her flee in embarrassment, that girl, like a small boat in a stormy sea, unexpectedly doesn't dodge or evade. She suddenly leaps into the air, directly facing the monstrous swordlight. Boom! There is a loud noise, and the entire flower in the mirror shakes violently. Gorgeous, colorful rays of light explode in the air, like the most dazzling fireworks. The powerful pressure and spiritual power that overflows from the small secret realm makes many people in the stands directly overturn to the ground, their faces pale and trembling. Even the mentors of the Dragon Soaring Academy are horrified, their eyes full of disbelief. Their eyes are fixed on the two figures fighting in the air and the flower in the mirror. In just a few breaths, they have already exchanged dozens of moves. Every move is filled with killing intent, only advancing and not retreating. Every move is like a stormy sea, as if it can directly split the world in the small secret realm. The vice head's mouths open for a long time before they murmur. Jun Mai, can actually contend with Chu Tianyu head-on. Yes, everyone thought that Jun Mai would choose to avoid the sharp edge, and then use auxiliary skills to entangle Chu Tianyu, and finally use a surprise strategy to win. Just now, Jun Mai's zither sound created an invisible rebound barrier, making people believe that she has such an ability. In addition, Jun Mai's zither sound can infinitely replenish her own spiritual power, but it can also accelerate the consumption of the opponent's spiritual power. It wasn't impossible to slowly grind Chu Tianyu to death by delaying the fight. This was a combat method that most support-type cultivators would use. However, no one would have thought that such a delicate and beautiful girl, a girl who looked so delicate that a gust of wind could blow her away, would actually be so beautiful. He didn't even think of fighting Chu Tianyu from the start. If she wanted to win, she had to win fair and square, without any tricks. She wanted to tell everyone that she was Yi Liangchun. Qi murmured, his voice hoarse. She's using this method to tell us that she's the Lord of 6 stars. She's Yi Liangchun. Apart from Yap Liangchun, who else could have such a powerful assisting ability and such a powerful fighting ability? Other than Yap Liangchun, who else could fight against a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm, at the first stage of the Golden Core realm, and not be at a disadvantage? Qi words were like a giant bell that smashed into the chests of the instructors of the Soaring Dragon sect. Zhou Daoyi, the vice deans, and the others fell into deep thought. Yu Tsuinjian and Elder Song, on the other hand, looked livid. Watching flowers in the mirror, Yun Ruhan and the others who were fighting suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. The sense of danger made them numb all over. Then, they felt a sword light coming straight down from the sky. Chapter 2065. If it weren't for Yun Ruhan and Duan Wenbin's quick reflexes and evasion, the sword aura would have cut the two of them into pieces. The same thing happened to Qin Jiu, Lung Yuma, and the others. Luo Yu was the most miserable. He was controlling the puppet to fight against Su Yi, Shi Jingfeng, and the others. Caught off guard, the sword radiance fell, and rocks flew everywhere, directly cutting two of his puppets to death. Of course, Su Yi was in an even worse state. The 7 or 8 puppets that he had just summoned were directly smashed into pieces. He was also thrown to the ground by the sword Qi and spat out a mouthful of blood. Luo Yu looked at the crack in the ground and patted her chest with lingering fear. Seeing Ling Yuxing, who was also hiding over here, Luo Yu couldn't help but say, "Sixth senior sister, and that Chu Tianyo's fight is a bit too intense. Why does it look like he's going to tear down the whole mirror?" The corner of Ling Yuxing's mouth twitched. "I don't think so." The next moment, with a loud bang, a whirlwind-like energy ball smashed towards the ground. Everyone's expression changed, and they roared, "Run!" They scattered in all directions. In the next moment, it felt as if the entire flower viewing mirror was shaking. Countless giant trees were uprooted and thrown into the air. Slowly, the smoke and dust settled. Luo Yu and Ling Yuxing looked at the huge crater on the ground and looked at each other. He really tore it down? This pit took up more than half of the area in the flowers in the mirror. The forest and plains had disappeared without a trace. Under the exposed ground, one could see the scattered and condensed energy bodies. The flower in the mirror was really going to be torn apart. Too scary. Many people on the grandstand swallowed their saliva, their eyes filled with shock. I know that Senior Brother Chu is strong. He's been invincible in the Soaring Dragon for so many years, but Jun Mayan, why is Jun Mayan so strong? Isn't she supposed to support the Zither player? This thought flashed through everyone's mind. Yes. Isn't Jun Mayan the assistant Zither master? How could an auxiliary Zither player be able to fight head-on with Senior Brother Chu and be locked in a stalemate? Was there really such an omnipotent person in this world? His support was heaven-defying, and even his battle prowess was unshakable. No, in this world there is still one person who can do this. Among the Azure Blue Realm cultivators, someone suddenly said softly, "The Lord of Azure Cloud, the Lord of Golden Heavenly Light, the Lord of 6 Stars, the Medicine King's successor. There is only one person in the world who is omnipotent and capable of everything. This person, no matter what he does, I will not be surprised, I will not doubt. Because there were no more kings under God Yi. There was dead silence." After a long time, someone stuttered. You mean Jun Mayan is Yap Liangshan? No way. Didn't they say that Brother Chu is Yi Liangshan? However, Senior Brother Chu is indeed not as good as Yi Liangshan. Senior Brother Chu doesn't know how to assist at all. The Azure Blue Realm cultivator who had just spoken fell silent. However, this kind of speculation was also planted in everyone's heart. Who was Yap Liangshan? The instructors of the Soaring Dragon didn't even have time to think about this question. They hurriedly channeled their spiritual energy into the flower in the mirror to stabilize the small, mysterious realm. No one expected that the battle between 2 Golden Core Realm students would almost destroy the treasure of the Soaring Dragon sect, Flower in the Mirror. At this time, the battle between Chu Tianyu and Mayan had also reached the most critical moment. Chapter 2066. In the sky, the 2 people standing far away from each other appeared pale, and their bodies were covered in sword wounds. Chu Tianyu looked deeply at the girl in front of him. There was no longer any pity, guilt, infatuation, or pleading in her eyes. Instead, there was only admiration and battle intent that had been ignited. After so many years, this was the first time he had met his match, and the first time he had fought to his heart's content. At this moment, there was only joy in his heart. Even the mysterious Heaven Pearl, even Chu Xinyan, as well as the humiliation and despair he had been born with, were all thrown to the back of his mind. He just wanted to finish this fight as quickly as possible. The 2 of them didn't say anything else and soared into the sky almost at the same time. The sword radiance flashed, and the wind howled. Thousands of sword nets fell from the sky and exploded. Sky-piercing flame cut, when used to the extreme, could create 108 cuts at the same time. That was a true sea of raging flames. It blotted out the sky and was unstoppable. Originally, Chu Tianyu had no way to display the sky-piercing raging flame cut to its peak. But at this moment, his mind suddenly became clear, and he truly displayed it. Mayan feels as if she's in a boundless sea of swords. That sea of swords was even vaster and sharper than little martial uncle's sword formation. Every single one of them contained piercingly cold, killing intent, and they pressed forward courageously and were difficult to resist. After all, the time that Mu Yin has spent learning the sword is too short, and the time that Luo Yunxiao has taught her is even shorter. Most of the time, she has to rely on herself to figure out the sword formation and the ancient books that junior uncle left behind. At this moment, facing Chu Tianyu, who had been cultivating sword intent for more than 10 years, he was naturally at a disadvantage. Mayan's spiritual power is slowly depleting, and with her lotus blossoming steps, she can no longer avoid every single sword ray. Bloody scars began to appear on his body. Would she lose? Lose her identity as Yi Liangqin, lose the profound heaven orb, lose the courage to become stronger? Mu Yin was in a trance. More and more sword chi landed on her body, causing her to be drenched in blood. Suddenly, two figures, one large and one small, appeared in front of her. It was on the summit of Danyang Mountain. Di Mingzhu hugged Xiao Bao and said that he wanted to be Xiao Bao's real father. He wanted the family to never be separated. At that time, just how bright were Xiao Bao's eyes, just how longing, just what kind of warmth flowed through her heart. Was she going to admit defeat? Never. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Mu Yin doesn't notice that the small dark green sword that Luo Yunxiao gave her is trembling violently in the space. At the same time, at the core of her star domain, a ball of light was faintly discernible and slowly taking shape. Countless sword wills poured into her mind. It was someone else's, but also her own. It was as vast as the sea, scattered like stars on a chessboard. I want this world to no longer be able to shackle my destiny. I want this world to never be able to take away anything I care about. I want to be with the one I love in this world of mortals and never leave him. This is my June Mayan's sword heart protect. Mayan suddenly opens her eyes. Her peach blossom pupils are as bright as the stars, as bright as the blazing sun. A dazzling light, accompanied by an earth-shaking roar, burst out from the net of the 108 void-piercing flame cuts. Almost at the same time, Chu Tianyu's last sword move, the strongest move, the setting sun void cut, also arrived. Rumble! The violent sound caused the entire flying dragon city to shake. The mirror visualizing secret realm on the high platform at the center let out cracking noises. In the end, under the situation where the mentors of Long Tongue were shocked and didn't have enough time to input spiritual power to repair it, it shattered with a loud bang, along with the high platform in the center of Flying Dragon City. Gravel splashed, and for a moment, many people were injured by the gravel. Chapter 2067. However, no one was willing to leave. They stared at the center of the smoke and dust, and there was only one thought in their minds. Chu Tianyu or Jun Mayan, who won in the end? The Qilin team, the carefree team, who would ultimately become the first king of the Deer Cry Banquet. Cultivation Continent Jungle Ruins. Swish! While Luo Yunxiao was exploring the ruins, 8 natal flying swords suddenly appeared around her without being summoned. The tips of the swords were all pointed in the same direction, emitting a buzzing sound. The powerful sword chi spread out, causing all the spirit beasts in the forest to become restless and flee. Luo Yunxiao stared blankly at this scene, as if she had lost her mind. Master, what's going on? Why is your natal heart sword moving on its own? Chiwen anxiously walked around the 8 swords a few times, and asked nervously, "Master, is there something wrong with your bodies?" Luo Yunxiao only came back to her senses after a long while. Her slender jade-like hand waved in the air. The 8 flying swords flew back at lightning speed and entered his body. A wave of pure energy washed through his body. It was like a cleansing of his soul and domain. "Master, what happened?" Could something have happened to Mei Yin? The other natal swords sensed danger from the Dragon Void sword. What to do? What to do? Should we go save Mei Yin? "Master, you won't be heavily injured because the Dragon Abyss sword is damaged, right?" "It's not a crisis." Chiwen chattered for a long time before she heard the man's slightly hoarse voice. "It's not a crisis. It's Mu Yin who has condensed her sword heart." Quack! Chiwen's voice got stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say a single word for a long time. "Condense, not sword heart." Did it hear wrongly? Mei Yin condensed a sword heart. "Master, are you joking with me?" Luo Yunxiao slowly exhaled. A helpless yet gentle smile slowly blossomed on her beautiful and picturesque features. "I had originally thought that I was helping her, but in the end, I still owe her." The sound of the zither in the river of forgetfulness once, the engagement once, and the heart soared once again. "Junmayan, your redemption, how can I repay it in full? How could he have the chance to pay it off?" Xiaoxin Continent, Polar Domain, Northern Frontier. Di Mingju, who had just annihilated a wave of poltergeist ghosts, suddenly shudders all over. He abruptly opens his palm. A strange fluctuation slowly condensed in his palm, forming a faint luster. "Junshang, what's wrong?" Han Yi beheads a roaring ghost that pounces over, asking nervously. Di Mingju looks at it for a while, then withdraws his hand. The corner of his mouth outlines an imperceptible smile. Mayan has condensed her sword heart. "What?" Hearing this, Han Yi is almost bitten by the poltergeist that pounces on him. Condensed sword heart? The sword heart with the domain core. A golden core stage cultivator from the cultivation continent condensed a sword heart? Junshang, are you teasing me? Han Yi isn't the only one who is dumbstruck. Even defeating armies, who is like a heartless and emotionless puppet, has an incredulous expression on his face. As far as they knew, it was because of the limitations of the cultivation world's energy field. The number of people who could activate a domain, there was less than 1 in 10 million. For Miss June to be able to activate her domain at the age of 20, that was already an unimaginable talent. In the Xiaoxin continent, there were many people who could activate their domains. But domain sword heart? What's that? That's the realm that all sword cultivators yearn for even in their dreams. Once a sword heart is condensed, it can double the speed of the domain's advancement. Chapter 2068. Moreover, his comprehension of sword intent, the coherence between his sword chi and his body, and the exertion of his own strength would all be greatly enhanced. Not to mention, only those who possessed the sword heart could refine their own natal flying sword after their sword heart was completely stabilized. It could be said that only a person who had condensed a sword heart was qualified to be called a true sword cultivator. In the Xiaoxin continent, only when one's domain reached the 5th rank would they begin to condense their sword heart. In the entire Xiaoxin continent, Di Mingju was able to condense his sword heart when he was at the 4th rank of Domain Master. What about Miss June? She was only at the 3rd level of domain. Moreover, he was able to condense his sword heart in a place where the energy in the cultivation continent was heterogeneous. If it weren't for Di Mingju saying this, Han Yi would have directly spat out. "Nonsense, you condensed the sword heart in your dream." The first to react was Ying Mei. Her face, which had always been as cold as ice, revealed an excited and expectant smile. "That's great, as expected of Miss June. My lord, does that mean that Miss June can come to the Xiaoxin continent faster and become the mistress of the polar domain faster?" Di Mingju's complexion is cold, but the bottom of his eyes is sparkling. He remembered what Mu Yin had told him. She wanted to be a wife who was worthy of him, a wife who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, and not a canary in a cage. Because of this promise, his Yin worked hard without a moment's rest. There has never been a moment like this when Di Mingju believes that Mayan also loves him, as if their hearts are linked. Because she loved him, she was desperate to become stronger. Because she loved him, she tried her best to get close to him, tried her best to make them a real family. Jun Shang. Han Yi originally wants to ask Di Mingju if he's sure that Mayan has really condensed her sword heart. When he raised his head, he was stunned, only to see Di Mingju's face rippling with a gentle and loving smile. At that moment, Jun Shang, who has always been cold and aloof, is unexpectedly happy like a child. His face, which was already extremely handsome to begin with, instantly became as elegant as the rosy clouds of the morning, causing people's hearts to be enchanted. However, they were only willing to submit to him and look up to him, treating him as their lifelong faith. Han Yi stares blankly. He suddenly kneels down and bows. Jun Shang, in this world, only Miss June is worthy of you. She would definitely become the mistress of the polar domain. No, the mistress of the polar domain can only be Miss June. Di Mingju restrains his expression and lowers his head to look at him. He faintly says, 3 months in the purgatory pool for now. Han Ye's words were originally spoken from his heart, from his feelings. He didn't expect that by a stroke of luck, he would be exempted from the purgatory pool for 3 months. He was overjoyed. Sure enough, in front of Jun Shang, there were no other principles as long as Miss June was praised. Then it was right. Han Yi bends down. Just as he's about to express his thanks, there's a sudden violent fluctuation in the barrier not too far away. Then, a dense horde of venomous ghosts roared and surged in crazily. Han Ye's complexion greatly changes. How could this be? Isn't the barrier about to stabilize? Ing Mei shouted, Xian Division, listen up! Kill! Kill! The light in Di Mingju's eyes faintly narrow. He raises his hand, and in the hollow of his palm, there faintly appears a weapon that seems like a sword but isn't a sword, seems like a knife but isn't a knife. It was impossible to discern the color or shape of this weapon. It's just that as soon as it appeared, the venomous ghosts that wanted to approach Di Mingju instinctively feel fear. They whimper, wanting to retreat. Di Mingju raises his hand, but he doesn't seem to make any movements. Chapter 2069. A red light flashes, and dozens of poltergeist ghosts immediately vaporize and disappear. But Di Mingju looks at the enchantment and slowly frowns. Is it his illusion? The strength of the poltergeist ghost this time seems to be stronger than last time. But the energy of the enchantment has weakened. Xiojin Continent, Dragon Soaring Academy. The dust and smoke in the center of Flying Dragon City dissipate, and 2 figures slowly appear. Whether it's Chu Tianyu or Jun Mayan, both are scarred, their faces like paper. Everyone holds their breath for a moment, staring unblinkingly at the scene on the broken platform. Finally, the girl in the blood-stained white dress slowly hooks up her lips. Her pale and gloomy complexion is like the dull sky, stained with red clouds, bright and beautiful. Chu Tianyu, on the other hand, suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. A huge wound split open from his chest. The wound is so deep that the bone can be seen just an inch away from the centrifugal artery. And this is obviously not because he avoided the vital parts, but because the opponent was lenient. Chu Tianyu's body suddenly shakes, and he quickly uses the Scarlet Flame sword to support himself, so that he doesn't completely fall down. His blank eyes slowly fill with astonishment and disbelief. He lost? In a real competition, he actually lost to Jun Mayan, a young girl at the first level of Gold Core stage, no more than 20 years old. Captain, Boss Chu, are you okay? The members of the Qilin team rush over, their faces full of worry. Chu Tianyu stares at Jun Mayan in a daze. After a long time, he reveals a bleak and desperate smile, slowly shaking his head. He opens his cracked and blood-stained lips, and with difficulty, he spits out 3 words with almost all his strength. I lost. As soon as these words come out, the entire Flying Dragon City is thoroughly seething. 1. The winner is the Carefree team. It's actually Junmayan. The Chilean team lost to a team of 7 people. How is this possible? Everyone's face is filled with shock, amazement, and complete bewilderment. The strongest team of Dragon Soaring Academy, the genius combination of 1 in 10,000 in the younger generation of Purple Cloud Realm, actually lost to an unknown team of Azure Blue Realm. And the most outstanding Heaven's Pride in the history of Dragon Soaring Academy lost to an auxiliary Zither Master. How could the high and mighty cultivators of the Purple Cloud Realm accept this? Even more unacceptable were the other members of the Kirin team. Are you kidding me? How could our Kirin team lose? The veins on Shui Huailu's face bulged as he roared hysterically. I refuse to accept this. How can we lose to a bunch of trash from the Azure Blue Realm? Su Yi also screamed, yes, we haven't lost yet. We still have a chance. Junmayan, don't think that Xiao Yao team has won just because you used a trick to win against the captain. Not to mention Shui Huailu and Su Yi. Even Jin Zhonghao, Duan Wenbin, and Chu Yuanlei revealed expressions of unwillingness. In front of everyone, it was 10 against 7, a high-level Gold Core Realm Cultivator against a low-level Gold Core Realm Cultivator. If they admitted defeat, how could they have the face to stay in Longting in the future? Chu Tianyu frowned. He wanted to say something, but didn't say anything in the end. Shui Huailu's spirit jolted as he glared venomously at the members of Carefree Team. The real competition has only just begun. My Chilean team won't be lenient anymore. Shui Huailu was incomparably arrogant right now. He felt that he had the capital to be arrogant. Because at this time, everyone in the Carefree Team was already covered in cuts and bruises, and their spiritual power was almost exhausted. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.